Yes.
The Leaf Green Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1519 of the War News stream. And tonight we have very big news and also some active situations happening right as we're going live. We're seeing that explosions are being reported in Tehran, Iran, and other cities amid air defense fire. And it's not really believed what's really going on right now, to be honest. We think it's a drill, but we're really not sure. But it's a big situation right now. We're also seeing that Iranian Navy boats today invaded the Strait of Hormuz and also seized some ships. And also, Iran declared an act of war by U.S. forces today, despite already being in a war with the United States. But it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments, particularly within the Middle East and the Strait of Hormuz at this moment today, as the Islamic Republic of Iran has physically taken control of the strait with a significant amount of drone attack boats, or more so fast attack boats, which were seen swarming in the strait today in the dozens by satellite photography. We have also been able to hear that, additionally, the Islamic Republic of Iran did officially declare war on the United States as of today, largely once again torpedoing and sinking really any concept that the United States of America may be able to find a peace with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Additionally, we have also been able to hear that the United States of America has also reported, along with the UK MTO, that several commercial vessels today, nearly 3 in number, have been significantly hit and also seized today within the area of Iranian territorial waters. We have also gotten further news that the United States end of the blockade has also seized an additional 3 Iranian vessels within the area of the Indian Ocean today. We have also been able to see that as well, within the area of the coast of Africa, we have now been hearing that the USS George H.W. Bush is apparently going to be brought into the area to be able to try and replace the USS Gerald R. Ford, which has been on the longest carrier deployment since 1964. Additionally, we have also been able to hear that the Turks are now getting incredibly concerned that the ongoing oil crisis due to the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz may lead to Europe becoming significantly economically degraded or, in fact, destroyed. We've also gotten additional news that 30 countries will be meeting in London over the next 2 days as far as their military officials are concerned, to speak on the issue of the Strait of Hormuz and what they may be able to do to try and help fix or alleviate the current situation. We have also heard that in the midst of all of this action, the United States Department of Defense has fired the Secretary of the Navy in the midst of the ongoing blockade in the Strait of Hormuz for some reasons, which have not been disclosed to the public. Additionally, we have also heard of explosions within Eastern Tehran just moments ago before we went live on air, and we've also been able to get some significant news and developments out of the Russian Federation in Ukraine, as Ukrainian armed forces have continued their strikes on the Russian Federation today in long-range drone strikes, and have been able to cause a significant amount of casualties and damage to Russian frontline forces throughout the entirety of the area inside of the occupied regions of Ukraine. Unfortunately, the United States has suspended all of its weapons shipments and munition shipments to the European Union due to the ongoing war with the Islamic Republic of Iran, which the Republic of Estonia specifically mentioned today as a significant issue and a significant point of crisis for their nation, considering the rising tensions with the Russian Federation day over day and week over week. Before we move on into the rest of our news, though, and get on into all of these stories, starting with our largest stories first, and moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night, I'm quickly going to try and restart the Discord because Matthew was sounding like RoboMatt, or as we might call them, RoboCop, earlier on. So let me see if I can get this here really quickly sorted out for everyone, so that way we can try and get Matthew on a better call quality, and hopefully we'll be able to see that that is the case. Matthew, how are you coming in?
So I'm back now. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you loud and clear. Clear as crystal, as a matter of fact.
Good deal.
All right, and so with that, it is time for us to move on into our major news over the course of the past 24 hours. Moving us on and into our largest piece of the news for the day, we are going to be moving our way on into the Strait of Hormuz, as we have been able to hear of significant developments within this area over the course of the day, which is one, showing that the situation is continuing to stay not in the most optimal sort of a setting, and secondly, the situation has also gotten a lot worse, according to what the Pentagon has announced today to the Congress in some briefings that were given to the Congress over the course of this day. According to information that has now come out from the United States of America's government, or more so the Department of Defense, we have been able to hear that according to their statements today, it could take up to 6 months for the United States Navy to fully clear the Strait of Hormuz of Iranian mines, and any such operation is unlikely to be carried out until the U.S. war with Iran ends. That was according to the Pentagon informing Congress today, meaning that this is an official government statement from the U.S. Department of Defense, meaning that the U.S. Department of Defense, at its most optimal time frame at the moment, is expecting that it would take an entire half year to demine the Strait of Hormuz and to be able to see that international traffic was able to travel through the international waterways inside of the strait. This is a significantly perilous situation, as this also means that with each passing week and each passing month, we are seeing that the conflict, which the Department of Defense is now saying has to end for the demining to begin, is still going on, meaning that it's only adding more time to the already 6-month long window that it would take to demine the strait successfully and then allow for civilian traffic to continue on through. We have also been able to see that additionally, the President of the United States has now been alleged to have given a Sunday timeline, which really doesn't mean anything, for the Iranians to make a deal by. I would generally say that this would be something significant to note, but considering that every single time we hear that the Iranians have to make a deal by this point in time, otherwise we're going to blow up the whole country, has happened about 6 times at this point, and I have a feeling that this timetable, or more so time window up until Sunday, would also be extended as well if the Iranians don't agree to anything, and we would see that this situation would continue. In the midst of all of this, the Islamic Republic of Iran did officially state that they are in a state of war with the United States of America today, which is a little bit interesting considering that they have been in an official state of war for quite some time, and they already raised the red flag of vengeance and all of that malarkey about a month and a half ago at this point, meaning that they've already stated that they are in a war, but now they are officially stating through government officials that they are in a war. Just to make that clear, the war is a war, according to the Iranians. So now we know that, at least clearly. If we didn't know that from the U.S.'s end, the Iranians were able to corroborate about a month and a half in, it is a war. We have also been able to hear of other significant developments within the Strait of Hormuz today, which have also been not in the necessarily best strategic light that we've seen so far. We did get to hear that due to the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is clearly going to be closed for the indefinite future, the price of WTI crude oil is already beginning its steady climb back up into its highest figures that we've seen at least recently at this moment right now. Over the course of this day, the last time we checked, which this is a snapshot from around 12 o'clock midday here in the United States of America, the price of WTI crude had actually reached around $93 per barrel. At this moment right now, it's about $94 per barrel trading on the markets that have already closed, at least for now, meaning that the price of oil will most likely start to rise once again tomorrow, and we may see that it rises a couple of more dollars once more, getting incredibly close to the $100 range, which we had already seen in some prior times. Currently, Brent crude is already hovering around that price at $102.51, but is largely stabilized over the course of this day. We are expecting, however, that the prices will continue to rise as physical shortages are starting to become increasingly common throughout the entirety of the world, and it appears that it is, as predicted and projected, hitting the poorest countries first that are not able to afford the increased cost of fuel, and it will then be spreading to the countries that are the wealthiest last, meaning that most countries in Europe and most countries within North America will be some of the nations that are least affected for the longest amount of time before physical fuel shortages start to hit the entirety of the rest of the world, including the highly developed and incredibly wealthy regions of the world like the United States of America and Western Europe. We have also been able to hear additional news that at the same time as all of this was going on from the U.S. perspective, the Iranians were making sure to put out their rhetoric and statements again today, making it incredibly clear that they had no plans of negotiating with the United States of America. And on top of that, they were going to be considering the situation a time of war for the larger moment, meaning that any sort of a unilateral extension of a ceasefire is going to be for naught, as the Iranians are still considering themselves and their nation to be on a wartime footing, and as a result of that, they will not be engaging in any negotiations from this point on, or will be trying to attempt to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, considering that that is a significant strategic advantage that they've been able to afford themselves so far during the war. We have been able to hear that, according to the Tuapse letter, who was able to get some statements from the Tasnim news agency, Iran currently has no plans to negotiate with the United States on Friday. This morning, the President of the United States did state that he was expecting talks to begin as soon as Friday, but it does not appear that that will be happening at this moment, as it does appear that the United States of America is not able to get the Iranians back to the negotiating table in Islamabad. It appears that the last time we were able to conduct the talks with the Vice President leading the diplomatic delegation, that we were able to make it absolutely nowhere with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States of America entered the talks with maximalist demands trying to achieve our objectives, but the Iranians also came in with their own maximalist demands trying to achieve all of their objectives out of the war as well. One of them, and the most important one, at least in the very short-term sense that we see right now, is that the Iranians were claiming that they already completely controlled the entirety of the Strait of Hormuz, and that was no longer even up to question, meaning that if we tried to conduct a second round of talks once again, our most realized threat and our most dangerous situation with the Iranians, at least in the amount of time that it would take for it to become a major crisis, which is the blockade of the Hormuz, is something that the Iranians aren't even willing to negotiate on, meaning that all of the other points are more so abstract compared to the imminent threat that we are seeing right now, which is the continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz. For this reason,
That's what I really don't get right now. With the U.S. extending these talks and also extending the ceasefire, even though Iran hasn't asked for it, it's like, what is the rationale behind that? Because if Iran is not asking for an extension, and also they're not willing to budge whatsoever on any of their negotiation points, then it's kind of hard to justify extending something like that. So, I mean, outside of possibly stalling for more military movements into the region, I'm really not sure what it could be outside of that, because it really doesn't make much sense.
it doesn't really make any sense at all, to be entirely honest, how we continue to stall. As we are stalling for more time to achieve nothing. We already know that the Iranians aren't going to talk. They are not going to ever talk. And even if they do talk, they're not going to be willing to agree to any of our demands, meaning that it's a complete dead end as far as trying to get some sort of a deal struck up with the Iranian government. And that would seem to lead us back to the only other option that we would have at that point, if where we see that by statistical chance, there's only a 1% chance of getting the Iranians to talk and agree to anything that we would want at this point, then clearly we should be going with an option that may provide at least a 50-50 chance of success, which would be continued military actions against Iran and a forcible opening of the Strait of Hormuz against the Iranian regime. That seems to be the most reasonable, in my opinion, at least at this moment, and considering the news that we're hearing that it will take about 6 months to demine the strait, much to the dismay of many who stated that I was actually wrong in saying that demining would take weeks. Some people said it would only take about 30 minutes or maybe a day. Turns out I was actually wrong, and all those people were wrong. It's far longer than the window I even gave, which was almost a month. It would actually be about 6 months at this moment. And it does appear that a lot of people are currently talking about the situation with the bombshell news that came out today that demining the strait will take approximately 6 months. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that bombshell development or announcement today, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this is pretty much one of the worst case scenarios that we were worried about the entire time. 6+ months of the Strait of Hormuz being closed due to mines. That is what's called a long-term closure, and that is probably the worst possible economic position the world could be in, because with the Strait of Hormuz accounting for a whopping amount and percentage of global oil exports, it can't stay closed for that long. If it does, that's going to cause huge effects in the global economy. So now we're hearing the U.S. say and confirm that it will take 6+ months to clear the Strait of Hormuz of mines. So how bad is it in your opinion? Because of course we hear the expert analysis about that situation, but what is your opinion here in the audience? 41% said the world economy will likely collapse by then, in 6+ months, while 37% said the world economy will simply rough it out and survive, and 15% said it really won't take that long. So this is troublesome because number one, this is assuming the war comes to an end because they can't demine the strait while the war is still going on. They're going to get hit with missiles from the Iranian regime. So this is assuming the war comes to a stop. Then it takes 6 months to clear the Strait of Hormuz with mines. Also, we heard today that some of these mines are being guided with GPS in the Strait of Hormuz, which means that some of them are free floating, which is quite concerning as well. So that means they can move around and the Iranians could guide them to different locations. And also today, we saw a whole bunch of IRGC fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz, and we don't really know what they were doing out there. They could have been trying to harass vessels, or they might have been laying more mines. That's another possibility as well. So to me, I would say that unless the U.S. brings us to a quick end militarily or something else, then I think the world economy will rough it out. I don't think it's going to totally collapse as in like the apocalypse is going to happen, but it will definitely take a beating, that's for sure. We're already seeing the early signs of it, by the way. We're seeing airlines cancel flights. They're having to reduce flights dramatically because they don't have enough aviation fuel, and I think that's going to spread. It's going to be way worse than simply flight cancellations if this keeps up, which it sounds like it will. So I'm with the 37%. It's definitely going to be a little rough patch, that's for sure, and hopefully it doesn't get any worse than that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would be with, generally with the current circumstances right now, I would actually be with a 42%. The global economy may suffer a significant collapse by the time that any demining efforts are able to reopen the strait to normal civilian traffic. And I don't mean to be that big of a doomsday, or at least on this economic situation right now, but the United States has done nothing, one, to attempt to actively open the Strait of Hormuz for civilian traffic, and secondly, we've also seen that the U.S. government has done absolutely nothing on the home front to be able to try and conserve limited fuel resources that we have here in this country and are also going to be consumed by other foreign countries as well, considering that they're having to now supplant the gap in their supply chain with American oil instead of Middle Eastern oil. With that in mind, I think that if we continue on at this current pace right now, the U.S. and Europe, which hasn't really started any major fuel rationing regimens really on either corner of the world right now, might see that we run through most, if not all, of our fuel resources, and then by the time that we're actually about halfway through opening the Strait of Hormuz, most everyone in these areas of the world are just going to run out of fuel, and even if we wanted to ration at that point, there wouldn't be any left, because no rationing regimen is being made preemptively to try and deal with the upcoming major crisis that will be to follow.
Yeah, and also on top of that, it's being compounded by the fact that all these vessels that we've been hearing the president talk about that are coming to the United States to fill up with our oil here domestically in the United States, those ships are going to be draining our oil supplies domestically here in the domestic 50 states. So that's going to cause a problem because now that oil that was previously being bought from the Middle East by these countries that are now getting it is now going to be bought from the United States. And we need that oil because right now it's not getting through the Strait of Hormuz. And now they're drawing on our stocks. So it's going to further advance the threat of running out of petroleum products and also skyrocketing the cost of it. We're not seeing it right this minute today, but we will be seeing it though in the future. It's going to happen eventually. They can't just, put it off forever. Right now, they're trying to stave off the inevitable by doing this whole roller coaster routine with, oh, the strait's going to be open tomorrow. Oh, it's going to be closed tomorrow. It might be open. Like every single Monday when the market opens, there's always like a big, like hopeful statement that comes out that maybe it'll be open. But it's like, I mean, the truth is it's closed now. I mean, Iran today is attacking multiple different ships. They're seizing cargo ships as well. I mean, the strait's not open, and it doesn't appear to be open anytime soon.
And it doesn't appear that it will be at all. And right now, folks, there is always a way, folks, to be able to try and mitigate a bad decision to where it is not that bad, or there is some way to turn the situation around. And there's two ways that we can do this right now. Either one, we can try and militarily reopen the strait, as that appears to be our only attempt at success right now. And secondly, in the midst of doing that, we need to start rationing fuel here in the United States of America. One of the main forms of consumption within this country of any form of petroleum products is transportation, with the U.S. public using about 13.5 million barrels of crude oil a day, when we speak about it as a refined fuel product, to be able to move around and go to work and go back home. That means that the largest majority, quite literally our entire domestic crude oil production, is consumed the same day it's produced in that form just for transportation alone. And that doesn't factor in power production, industrial consumption, and also commercial consumption, along with a couple of other forms of consumption that exist in the United States for crude oil, meaning that we end up running a deficit in the millions of barrels every day for crude oil in this country because we only produce about 13.5 million barrels of crude oil a day, but we actually consume somewhere around roughly 21 million barrels of crude oil every single day, meaning that we're running quite a significant deficit, and for that reason, we need to see that we try and pinch the fuel resources, or at least the consumption, as much as we can now, and to try and stretch it out for as long as it can last on into the future. At this point, it's incredibly clear that we will not have the strait open in time for this situation to just blow over and for the U.S. public to not be directly affected by the problem. If demining takes 6 months, starting today, we will have already probably run out of fuel resources in this country, especially with the Europeans drinking our milkshake, like some people have put it in the chat, like the movie There Will Be Blood. We'll probably be out of oil in this country within the next 3 to 4 months, meaning that there will be this 2-month gap where we're still trying to demine the strait, and traffic would be a trickle, and still the situation wouldn't be resolved yet by then. So I think that it's incredibly important at this point that we take at least some civil measures to conserve fuel resources.
Yeah, also on top of that as well, remember that the Gulf states, which are home to massive refineries, they've been attacked left and right during this whole war situation. So they need to exact repairs on their facilities. So they might be reduced in capacity until they're able to properly repair the oil refineries. So it's going to probably be reduced oil refining capacity until then anyway. So I mean, it's going to take time to fix it. It's not going to be an overnight thing, that's for sure. So basically buckle up and prepare for the worst on this one, because it looks like it could be pretty close to it.
Yeah, it's not sounding like a positive development at all, at least in this situation, and it also appears that the Iranians quite literally are swarming the strait today and physically once again showing that they control the entirety of it, largely uncontested at this moment because we're not challenging their control of the strait. We did get to hear that the Iranians did state that a blockade by the United States, which is the ongoing one, is an act of war and requires a military response, while at the same time we got this satellite picture that came out today, which is absolutely insane. This streak right here that's highlighted in this red outline is not some sort of a cloud, and it's not a dust storm that's traveling over the Strait of Hormuz. It is actually a giant swarm, dozens of Iranian fast attack boats, along with other clusters, where you can see one up here at the top left, a couple of more off on their own out here, and one way up ahead, and it looks like a couple of more skirting along the coastline. literally swarming the strait, we aren't even challenging these little fast attack boats right now in their control of the strait. And in the midst of this swarm that happened today inside of the strait, these vessels were going out of their way to attack commercial ships that were near to the strait or trying to break through the strait, the very few that attempted it, and were able to board them and seize them after attacking several of them. So it is once again showing us that right now the Iranians, without a doubt, are in control of the Strait of Hormuz. And also, the additional question has to be asked if they dropped off any additional sea mines while they were out there swarming in the strait today. These little vessels cannot carry a huge amount of tonnage. It's very difficult for them. They're generally just speedboats that have been heavily modified and weaponized, but they can carry lightweight drones like the Mahan 7 and just drop them straight off of the back of the boats. And that means that today, if we were to count all of these little vessels that were out there in the strait, they could have dropped at a potential 30 Mahan 7s Maham 7s inside of the strait, one off of each of these boats. They may have been able to carry even more than that, meaning that either they're just once again showing that they clearly control the strait, or they just increased the size of the minefield by about 30 to 60 mines possibly over the course of this day alone. We're not entirely sure which it is, but of course with how things have been going so far, it can't really be put out of the question that they might have been dumping a whole bunch of mines off of the back of their boats and into the area of the minefield, once again adding to the numbers of mines within this area. Another interesting thing about this, folks, is that most mines are magnetic, and most of the Iranian mines that have been dropped off within this area are magnetic. And this is what is actually a little bit exceptional about the Iranian fast attack boats. While they are basically rinky-dink the boat, they are made generally out of some form of non-steel hull, like fiberglass or something else along those lines that doesn't give off any sort of magnetism. That means that Iranian fast attack boats actually can largely operate throughout the entirety of the minefield without a mine sticking to them and exploding, while on the other hand, U.S. warships like our Burks, which generally do have steel cast hulls or rolled homogeneous steel hulls, will not be able to pass through the Hormuz. Neither would really any commercial tankers or container ships either, because most if not all of their hulls are made of steel. So it does appear that they may, given that fact, have been able to actually go right through their own minefield and continue to drop mines within that field today. But once again, we're not entirely sure, and the satellite photography shows this large grouping of them somewhere around the area right here. Somewhere around this general area is the best I can show.
Also, I see people in the chat, they're asking a good question, and of course, it's a question that's been asked a lot of times over. They're saying, well, if the U.S. is saying that they destroyed Iran's Navy, then what is this? What are we looking at right here? So what these are right here, they're known as fast attack boats, like the Enforcer was just mentioning. The reason why these have not been destroyed, according to what we've seen in the reports, is that these ships are not really ships, but more like boats, I would say, little small fast attack boats. These right here are housed in hardened shelters right on the coast line. That's generally why these have not been destroyed for the most part, because trust me, if the U.S. could get to them and wipe them out, they would definitely do that. They've been striking up and down the coastline the entire time the war's been going on, but they've not been able to get these because they're in hardened shelters. I will say this, though. The rest of the Iranian Navy has largely been wiped out. We've seen a whole bunch of their propaganda vessels hit. Their drone carrier, like propaganda aircraft carrier deal, was also hit as well. So their Navy's been decimated. But the problem is, though, these fast attack boats are dangerous for multiple different reasons. Number one, it operates off the same principle as the cheap Shahed attack drones. These boats are very small, they're very fast, and they're cheap, and they can send out tons of them and overwhelm defenses that way. So that's a problem. Number two, we really can't destroy them as they're in hardened shelters. And number three, they can lay mines in the strait, which is what they've done in the past, and that runs contrary to U.S. statements as well, because the U.S. says that Iran doesn't have the capability to drop mines in the strait. That's simply not true. These vessels we're looking at right here can do exactly that. So that's a bit problematic, and I must say they need to take these things out, and they could have struck them today when they were going through the strait, but they didn't because of the whole, ceasefire thing.
Now, this is something that's actually a little bit important to talk to everyone about, is what the Iranians have as far as naval capabilities. Because a lot of people always think, and this is a common misconception, because this would be applicable to basically everywhere but the Strait of Hormuz, is that the Iranians have to have an ocean-going navy with vessels similar to the size of ours, like the Arleigh Burkes, to be able to actually stand a chance and really conduct a hard-fought battle against us. And that would be true everywhere in the world's oceans and seas except for here. The Strait of Hormuz is incredibly small. It's only about 20 miles to 30 miles across as far as its widest passage here in the very middle is, and because of that, U.S. destroyers and larger surface vessels like the ones we have actually aren't really that equipped to be able to deal with the threats within such a small area. In the relative sense, an area this size for a destroyer like an Arleigh Burke is basically like dropping the thing in a bathtub and then hoping that it's able to shoot at people that pop up on the very edge of the bathtub in a split second. The reaction times just really wouldn't be able to be there to deal with that. That means that these little fast attack boats are actually able to take advantage of their speed, their small size, and their limited amount of firepower, but massive numbers to be able to physically control the wider area within the Strait of Hormuz. They would not be able to do that throughout the larger area of the Persian Gulf due to its depth and width, and they also wouldn't be able to do that really in the Gulf of Oman or anywhere else. But the one place they can do that and conduct these swarm tactics effectively and also lay minefields with these vessels, and not only that, but also additionally actually cause some significant damage and make these vessels a significant threat, is within the Strait of Hormuz only. And that's why we're seeing that they're swarming there, and that's also why we're seeing the fact that the surface fleet of the Iranian Navy, the actual one that might be able to stand a little bit of a chance at giving us a fight for a short time, doesn't really matter, and it doesn't have an impact at all because the Strait of Hormuz is not the battlefield for those kinds of ships. The Strait of Hormuz is basically a cage fight for the larger part and the size of it, and also the brutality of it in the kinds of weapon systems that are employed. And we're seeing that the Iranians are still using to great effect their fast attack boats to be able to exercise direct control over the strait during the entirety of the ceasefire and the shooting war that happened before it. Right now, a lot of people are actually talking about the Iranian vessel swarms today that were going on inside the Strait of Hormuz and what those were about. And Matthew, what are people saying about those, and what are you thinking about them as well?
Okay, so today the Strait of Hormuz was absolutely crawling with these Iranian fast attack boats, and you saw them literally from the satellite view. You could see the huge wake they were leaving behind, and they were moving out quite quickly, as you could tell by the wake. So what is Iran likely doing right now in the Strait of Hormuz? And it looks like the audience is pretty much all over the place on this one. 38% said they're probably just attacking ships and harassing people, which we did see today, of course, while 36% said they're likely laying mines near Hormuz, and 22% said it could be both of those options, actually. And we do know for a fact that today Iran seized 2 cargo vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, and they used these fast attack boats to pull that off. We also heard very late last night on the stream that apparently one of the bridge of the vessels that was in the Strait of Hormuz was fired at by the IRGC forces on these fast attack vessels. So they were definitely doing that. But I would also go a step further, because I've seen a lot of analysts say this today, and I would tend to agree with it. I think the Iranians are laying some more mines near Hormuz. I think they're probably doing that because these are a lot of ships out there just for 2 cargo ships. I mean, this is a lot of fast attack boats simply running around the strait, and this is exactly how they would go about laying mines if they wanted to do it. So I think it's a bit of both. I'm with the 22%. I think they're probably laying mines, and they're also attacking ships at the same time, which basically means to me the ceasefire is over with. So the U.S. extending it with no solicitation whatsoever makes 0 sense at all. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I think that they're definitely laying mines. I would have to be with the 36% because the volume of this amount of fast attack boats is clearly showing us that they're not just conducting a one-off attack, as we did get reports from prior vessels that have been attacked that has shown a clear pattern that during those attacks, the Iranians only deploy about 2 to 3 fast attack boats at a time to be able to conduct attacks against those vessels. The fact that we're seeing well over several dozen of them here in the satellite picture is giving us an idea that they were conducting an operation that isn't along their usual pattern and lines of operation when attacking commercial ships, which would give us the understanding that this most likely was some other form of an operation and highly likely mine laying. Considering that there are several dozen of them, this means that if some of them are destroyed, the rest will still be able to make it to their location where they're supposed to deposit their mines and drop them off into the water. Also, the fact that it appears that they are moving at a high rate of speed may have shown that they got done laying a minefield and they're now leaving the area immediately to be able to return to a port or a secure secured location so that way the vessels cannot be attacked and destroyed after completing a successful mine-laying operation. So I would have to say that in my honest opinion, in my analysis, this is definitely mine-laying in my opinion. It's certainly not an attack on a commercial vessel, although we did see a lot of those happen over the course of this day. And finally, we got one last statement from the Iranians, from MB Ghalibaf, who stated the following today: "A complete ceasefire only makes sense if it is not violated by the maritime blockade and the hostage-taking of the world's economy, and if the such-and-such warmongering across all fronts is halted. Reopening the Strait of Hormuz is impossible with such a flagrant breach of the ceasefire. They did not achieve their goals through military aggression, nor will they through bullying. The only way forward is to recognize the rights of the Iranian nation." So the Iranians are still working off of their maximalist demands and are not budging a single inch off of them. They are still demanding that the United States accepts all of their terms, or else they will keep the Strait of Hormuz closed indefinitely. And it certainly does appear that they are working towards that right now. Earlier in the morning, we did get a report from the UK MTO of the following incident. The master of a container ship reported that the vessel was approached by one IRGC gunboat. No VHF challenge that then fired upon the vessel, which has caused heavy damage to the bridge. No fires or environmental impact was reported, and all the crew has been reported safe. Vessels are advised to report suspicious activity to the UK MTO. This was the first attack that we had heard of the day, and it already was showing that an IRGC gunboat had directly targeted the bridge of a commercial vessel, apparently attempting to either take out the helmsman, the captain, or most of the bridge crew, and fired upon the vessel, causing significant damage to that area of the superstructure, and then apparently departing the area. From what we know, the vessel was not boarded and seized at that moment, but we did get information about a container ship, possibly even this one, that was actually boarded and seized a little bit later in the day, just a little bit farther south, which may be suggesting that that was the very same vessel that was attacked earlier in the morning that was then boarded and seized by the IRGC just several hours later. Additional news came out that some vessels had been stopped within the area, and this is these several vessels that we believe might have been one of the ones that had its bridge fired upon that had significant damage caused to it. The Euphoria, which is a UAE-owned vessel flagged out of Panama, is a container ship and was stopped and seized today within Iranian territorial waters, which is giving us some sort of an indication that that may have been a likely suspect for the vessel that was actually fired upon earlier in the day. We also were able to see that the MSC Francesca, which is a Swiss-owned container ship also flagged out of Panama, was also stopped, boarded, and seized today within the area of the coastline of Iran as well. From what we understand, this vessel also meets the criteria that could have been one of the vessels fired upon, as it is also a container ship, much like the UK MTO gave in their very brief description of the incident. We also were able to hear that another container ship, once again fitting the description of a vessel that may have been attacked earlier in the day, the Epaminondas, which is an incredibly hard name to say, was also stopped in sea. The Epaminondas, which is a Greek-owned container ship.
That's a hell of a name right there. I'm glad that they didn't have to pronounce it at least.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I'm having to try my best right here. But it is a Greek-owned vessel, which also was stopped, boarded, and seized by the IRGC today, meaning that as of right now, 3 vessels have been stopped, boarded, and seized, with at least one of them being attacked, and this would also lead us to understand that a significant amount of people, most likely dozens, from multiple nationalities, have been arrested and taken hostage largely by the IRGC due to these stoppages and seizures that were conducted over the course of this day, which is once again showing us the Iranians are exuding quite a heavy amount of control over the strait, not only militarily, but also administratively. They are running the place like it is their very own, and any ships that are going through that area are basically at the behest and the absolute mercy of the Islamic Republic's government. Additionally, we also were able to see that reports did emerge that of at least of the marine trackers showing these vessels, the Euphoria, the Francesca, and also the Epaminondas, being seized and stopped within Iranian waters, which we were able to see transpire here on this marine tracker video right here. We can actually see the MCS Francesca being brought to a stop near to the city of Sarik, just a couple of miles off of the coast, while it appears that the Euphoria tried to make a break further south. The Epaminondas was also brought to the same location near Sarik and was brought to a stop to be boarded and seized, and we also saw that the Euphoria was stopped, boarded, and seized at the same time as the Epaminondas, which is the Greek-owned container ship that was seized over the course of this day. This, once again...
Here's an interesting question. I saw someone ask this in the chat, and I'll admit, like, on his face, like, there's something about it that seems like it's not possible, but I mean, it's a decent point. Some people are saying, why don't these ships simply get some guns for hire to go on the vessel and simply provide armed security while they're going through the Strait of Hormuz? I think there might be something in maritime law that prevents that, but at the same time, though, it's like they're going through basically an active war zone. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is basically a war zone at this point. I mean, there's active attacks happening on ships left and right. It seems to me like if there is something that's in maritime law that prevents that from happening, then they should probably just suspend that and let these ships have armed security. Because imagine if they fought back, because right now we're seeing these attacks are being conducted by armed Iranian gunboats, these little small fast attack vessels. It seems like if they could simply have somebody fight back from the cargo ship, then, I mean, it seems like they could simply fight them off for the most part. But for some reason, they're not doing that.
Well, it would get them a little bit farther, but it wouldn't really get them out of the woods per se, because the Iranians would just up the ante. If they did have an armed security team on board that fired on one of those boats and forced them to turn back, the IRGC would just radio to the mainland unit or their mainland commander, "We just got fired at, and they have armed security on board, so we can't approach." And then the Iranians go, "Oh, okay, that's good. Let's fire off a drone, or let's fire off an anti-ship missile and slam that thing to teach them a lesson." Because if they're going to try and resist us, we're just going to up the ante and knock the ship out anyway at this point to enforce our blockade. So, I mean, it would get them a little bit farther, at least stave off the boats, but it wouldn't stave off the anti-ship missile and drone attacks that would then follow, that those security teams would either be very ill-equipped to deal with or wouldn't be able to deal with at all.
Maybe so. I mean, that's a decent point, but it seems like it's better than nothing. Because, I mean, the alternative is their vessel gets boarded by pirates wearing ski masks, which we saw today, and we'll probably get to that clip here shortly. They're like, the Iranians are boarding these ships, and they look like straight up thugs. Like they're wearing ski masks, and you're getting on board the ship, and they're taking it like pirates. So, I mean, it's literally piracy happening in the Strait of Hormuz nonstop. So, I mean, it seems like it would be better to have armed security on board. They could fight back at least, because I mean, the alternative is they either destroy your ship or they take the ship, one or the other. And, you know, but between the two, I'd rather fight if I was a ship captain.
I mean, honestly, I guess it's up to the captains, but I think that unfortunately, at least for these companies, there really is no way for them to properly defend themselves, because the Iranian answer, and the Iranians will always win in this engagement, especially against a completely unarmed vessel with a couple of guys with rifles on board. They're just going to up the ante until they eventually hit it and knock it out. And then at that point, if the vessel sinks, now the company is out of billions of dollars with the loss of each vessel, and also possibly even the crew as well, which would then be hostages, and then they would have to go and see if their insurance policies cover their crews being taken as hostages. And then also on top of that, then the crews might refuse orders from their companies because they wouldn't want to try and break through the strait to then get hit by an anti-ship missile and left to die in the middle of the strait in a lifeboat, possibly, or to end up as a hostage of the Islamic Republic of Iran, no matter how it turned out. So generally, unfortunately, I don't really think there's a way for them to fix that. The U.S. Navy would have to go in and provide the real firepower that can up Iran's ante to be able to see that these ships actually made it through safely. And until then, I just don't think there's any way to get through this situation as far as an individual company is concerned.
Yeah, I see a great opportunity here for the Somali pirates that were on the coast to develop a consulting company, because right now I think these ships need some experience on their side. They need somebody to consult them about how to repel these pirate attacks, and who else to do it other than the Somali pirates right there on the coast. This is a great opportunity. They could legalize their operations and go legal.
I mean, honestly, man, at this point, we might see the return of privateers, you know, companies just giving out millions of dollars in contracts to private military companies to equip their own fast attack boats to be able to provide escorts for their container ships. I mean, you know, you never know. I mean, that might actually start to come around to being a thing.
Maybe so. You never can tell. Creative solutions in desperate times, I always say.
Man, you know, there is someone right now, man, in a board meeting going, "Hear me out. Blackwater." Like, man, they're all like, "Oh, that's an idea." But anyways, moving us on out of that, it is time for us to get on into some of the more news that we were able to hear out of the area, as we did get to hear, once again, that the MSC Francesca appears to have been the vessel that was attacked. It is a container ship matching the description. We do have the other ones, the Epaminondas, and also the other vessel as well, the Euphoria, which was also seized within the area. And we're not exactly sure which, but it appears that it may have been the Francesca that was the one that was attacked. We also heard more information about the mine situation, because now, folks, the numbers of mines that the U.S. is admitting within the strait has now increased to 20. All the way up until now, it was 12. That's what they said. Today, they're saying 20. And the fact that that number just magically increased by 7 today is telling me that they actually probably don't know how many mines are in the strait, and there's probably a whole lot more than 20 out there in the strait right now. There might even be dozens of them at this point, more so than just 20. Some of them were apparently floated using GPS technology, which made it difficult for the U.S. forces to detect the mines as they're being deployed, meaning that we actually don't really have a good grasp on how many mines are out there and where they are at all. So, take that for what you will. It does appear that the situation is not looking all too good on the strait. We have also seen that the Iranians did put out some footage today of them seizing a pair of container ships within the Strait of Hormuz. This actually appears to be the MSC Francesca right here. So here's the footage showing them boarding and seizing these vessels over the course of the day. But you can also see that this vessel was traveling incredibly light, almost with no cargo on board at all. But we can see the Iranian fast attack boat now pulling up alongside the vessel, which has come to a stop after being ordered to stop to prepare to be boarded. And we can also see that the crew...
Could you imagine if this ship right here had some private security? Like these guys right here, they'd be taking off in that little boat.
Man, and then, man, they would be like, "Yay, we warded them off!" And then you hear that... like you see a giant explosion on the engine room. It's like, like it would work for a little. It worked for a little, but, probably not in the long run, sadly. Now we can see...
Look at them, man. These guys are literally like straight up like pirates. Also, what's the point of wearing a ski mask? It's like, why hide your identity? It's like, it's not like somebody's going to hunt like individual soldiers down. It's like, that's crazy. They're literally like living up to the thug imagery.
Man, they're about to say, "Oh, welcome on board the MSC Francesca. Can I get your name?" You can call me Robri. Dice Robri. Man, oh, shit. Like, man, it's like, we're getting robbed.
Bro's about to get on the ship. I'm the captain now. It's like, oh, whoa. This isn't the USS Alabama.
Man, don't you dare desecrate our names, man. Like, but we can see them boarding the ship looking like a whole bunch of thugs in shiesties.
Looks like they're wearing like hospital bandages over their face. Like it doesn't even look like a proper ski mask.
And this is actually the MSC Francesca. Now you see them doing...
Also, they brought in the cinematography crew. Like they had literally cameramen running in front of the soldiers. Somehow they set up a camera like a film shoot in the midst of this piracy.
Man, they brought in Werner Herzmini. he's gonna go back to Tehran. You shouldn't seize this footage. Man, it's like, bro. Like, oh, man, here's another fast attack boat zipping around. This is all filmed over the course of this day. And we also see them now trying to board the Epaminondas, which is the vessel now seen in the video right here.
It's really insane that they literally bring a film crew with them. I guess one of the thugs wearing a ski mask is like a cinematographer in the mix.
Oh, man. Now they're in the ship. I gotta say, they really do a lot to try and overproduce. Oh, look, there's the Epaminondas right over there in the distance. That's exactly what we saw on Ship Tracker. Some folks are saying it looks a bit staged. Well, yeah, obviously the footage is staged, but at the same time, they did seize the ships. So, they seized them, and then after they seized them, they then staged all of this footage, because obviously they don't have cameramen in place when they originally board the ship in advance to film them as they're wandering through it. So... But you can see them now entering the bridge of one of the vessels. It appears to be the Francesca from what they're suggesting by the footage that followed after. And we can also see them showing off the side of the Epaminondas, or whatever the hell it is, as well.
It's called the Empanada for short.
Man, I'm here in Miraflores, man. But... Oh, man. But, yeah, there we go. They seized those two, and we also understood that they seized the Euphoria further down the coast, but they didn't show any footage of that one. It just wasn't good enough for the propaganda reels. Still, it is showing us that they are physically controlling the strait by all means, and we also got a little bit more unfortunate news out today. As U.S. officials told CBS News that 60% of the Revolutionary Guard's Navy is still present, including basically all of the fast attack boats. So not really a great situation, at least at the moment right now, inside the Strait of Hormuz. To be entirely honest with y'all, it's worse today than it has been most every other day because they've most likely laid more mines. We're now understanding the minefield's going to take 6 months to clear, and that's at the best case scenario. We've also seen that they've seized and attacked 3 other ships within the strait today, and also the United States is doing nothing to really turn the situation around and actually try and forcibly reopen the strait. So at the moment, it's generally, I hate to tell y'all, a bit of an unmitigated disaster. On the other hand, though, the U.S. did get a little bit of a bragging right today. We did seize 3 ships that were either on sanctions list or were Iranian flagged within Asian waters, according to a Reuters report that came out from the U.S. military. And we also were able to hear that the USS Gerald R. Ford is hopefully going to be returning home soon, as some sources have stated that the USS George H.W. Bush will be arriving within CENTCOM's AOR to relieve the USS Gerald R. Ford from its combat duties and send it back to the United States. We would hope that that would end up being the case. But with that is generally all of the news that we have out of the naval situation around the region today. But moving us on up into Tehran, we also have some interesting developments up here. There were reports of explosions that came from the area of Eastern Tehran. 2 large explosions, as a matter of fact. And we also got some footage letting us hear one of these explosions. Ah, yes. I see you know your videos well. This video existed when we went live. Now it doesn't. Mystery much?
Let me go grab it. There were several different people that uploaded it, so I'll go grab the different one. Give me about a minute or two.
We're going to give him about 5 seconds. I'm just playing. But
Got
there
it.
were... Oh, he found it. Well, actually, it was 2 seconds. Okay, well, good on you. Congratulations. He found them. So let's take a listen, folks. Let's take a listen.
I would assume it's being filmed from a truck.
I don't think that was the explosion. I think that was just the drones.
That's the only video I've seen so far is that one. I haven't really seen the video showing the actual explosions themselves.
Oh, yes. I suppose I swore I saw something kind of glowing on the ground in the video that I had to show, but maybe I was seeing the drone and I thought that was in the ground because I took a quick glance at it. But with that in mind, it does appear that there is something going on within Tehran at this moment, and it also does appear that there may have been some drones active over the city. And right now, a lot of people are putting in their thoughts and opinions on what that could be. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we did see, unfortunately, we don't have it on video to show you. We just saw the lights in the sky, which are being claimed to be drone activity, but we're not totally sure about it. We can't verify it ourselves. But we did hear from eyewitnesses on the ground that explosions and air defense fire was reported in Tehran, also in Isfahan and several other cities. So it was not limited, and it also wasn't just some random, a crazy report out there. Apparently, it was a real deal happening in multiple different cities with explosions going off. So what are your thoughts? What was really happening? 54% said it sounds like an aerial attack is probably starting to happen, while 21% said it sounds like internal fighting, and maybe they're fighting with each other inside of Iran, while 12% said it sounds like an IRGC military drill. So right now, the best report that I've seen so far, it seems to be the most credible, is that the IRGC is conducting air defense drills because we have not seen any Israeli fighter jet activity over the area, and we have not seen any U.S. Air Force activity over Iran so far either. So whatever is happening, it's probably a military drill. At the worst case scenario, it could be the IRGC trying to shoot down maybe a surveillance drone that Israel maybe launched at their country. It could be that as well. But I don't suspect we're seeing any type of U.S. or Israeli attacks on Tehran right now. So I would say it's likely a drill, or maybe they shot down a U.S. drone. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that's most likely a drill, in my opinion. We just don't have enough information to show that there are any armed strikes being conducted, and if there were, we would most likely be hearing that the Iranians would have announced that by now, as it's about 2 hours after the fact, and we haven't seen any announcements from them stating that there has been some sort of an attack within Tehran. If anything, it might have been some sort of a ground sabotage operation by an intelligence agency in the capital, but the drones were most likely Iranian, and I would highly doubt that Israeli or American drones flew all the way into Iran, over Tehran, and then started dropping explosives in the middle of the city, while at the same time we're claiming that we're in the middle of a ceasefire, and also that wouldn't really achieve anything for us if that was the opening of our armed action against them is dropping a couple of Pee-wee bombs off of a Pee-wee drone over Tehran. Really wouldn't add up that much. So I would say most likely a training operation in my opinion. But moving us on out of that, we have also been able to hear that the U.S. Air Force has intercepted some one-way kamikaze drones within Erbil, Iraq today, with explosions reported from these interceptions. We also heard that Ukrainian armed forces are now actually assisting and helping American forces in conducting drone defense. I hope the President of the United States says thank you to Zelensky next time he sees him, because right now he doesn't hold the cards. According to what we've been able to hear from Reuters, the U.S. has started using Ukrainian counter-drone tech of the Prince Sultan Airbase in Saudi Arabia after repeated Iranian drone attacks damaged aircraft and infrastructure. Ukrainian teams are training U.S. forces on a system called SkyMap, which we've actually heard of before in our coverage of the Ukraine war, which detects and helps to intercept drones. Hopefully the U.S. forces will be able to be trained properly by the Ukrainians on how to use this system, and once the shooting war starts up again, which at this point I hope that it would, so that way we can see that the straits reopen, we'll hopefully be able to see that the U.S. is able to use the lessons and the technology that the Ukrainians have given us and taught us to be able to defend our armed forces a little bit better while they're on the ground. It's always...
I thought that the U.S. told Zelensky to piss off. That's kind of a weird thing. That publicly they basically took a jab at Zelensky, and then behind the scenes they apparently agreed to work with him behind the scenes. I mean, Zelensky's playing it smart, by the way. Like Zelensky could easily let his emotions get in the way on this because the U.S. is making a point to take jabs at him nonstop. So I'm sure that's pissing Zelensky off, understandably so. But he's playing it smart because he knows that the U.S. is not always going to be ugly with Ukraine. Eventually it will turn back around, and Ukraine needs the U.S. as an ally in the future. So he's trying to keep the relations good despite the bad statements coming out, which is the smart thing to do because Ukraine still needs the United States if they can actually still pull that off. So they're probably just looking at this as a temporary problem. They're having to deal with a bad attitude from the U.S. administration, and it'll probably be changing probably sooner or later in the near future. So they're trying to keep the U.S. as an ally, bottom line.
Yeah, I have a feeling that at this point, they're probably forecasting, like many, that this sort of current attitude and action by the U.S. government will be only lasting very shortly and will probably be changing rather rapidly given the current developments that have been seen so far. Moving us on out of that, we also got to hear that the U.S. put out an announcement to all U.S. citizens in Lebanon, which I don't even know who the hell would be there, that American citizens need to leave Lebanon while commercial flights remain available. Are there any commercial flights out of Lebanon right now? There are like one or two. So, I mean, technically there are some, but these are going to places like Yerevan? Isn't that in Armenia? Where in the hell is that? Let's see. Yeah, that's in why? Oh, I forgot. They don't fly over Syria. Well, this one's flying over Syria. Fly Dubai's flying over Syria. What's up with this Lebanese airline company, the MEA, not wanting to fly over Syria? I mean, they easily could fly over. Anyways, it does appear that there are at least some commercial flights available out of Lebanon, but they're fairly few and far in between, and it appears that it's only taking you from one war-torn country to the next war-torn country, transferring you from the war-torn Lebanon to the war-torn Armenia, because that's clearly an improvement. I guess that is what it is. It is suggesting, though, that we're expecting that war is returning to the region, which is quite obvious at this point, and we're really just waiting to see when that's going to happen. We also got to hear that in the midst of all of this, Erdogan actually spoke to Germany's Steinmeier that the Middle East war is starting to weaken Europe, and Erdogan stated, if we do not address this situation with an approach that prioritizes peace, the damage caused by the conflict will be far greater. So it appears that Erdogan in Turkey is even getting concerned. Well, he's always been concerned about the situation, but he's once again voicing his concern now to the Europeans about the situation, and is trying to state that there needs to be some sort of a resolution of this, because if not, it's going to end up becoming quite damaging, which is quite obvious at this point, because the situation has not been improving at all over the course of the past few weeks, much less the entirety of the war since its start in late February. Now, with all of that out of the way, it's time for us to move on over and into the United States of America for a very interesting piece of news that came out today. But before we drop this bombshell bit of news that we have out of the Pentagon today, I do want to say a humongous thanks to everyone who has been watching the stream so far. We have had a hell of a night tonight. We've had about 19,000 people here at the peak, and about 83,000 people have watched the stream in the first hour, which crazily enough is almost the exact same amount of people in total that watched in the first hour of last night. tonight's stream. And I've got to say that we're entirely appreciative and extremely grateful that so many people continue to choose this channel as their primary source of news. We put a lot of honor and pride in the work that we do, and we try and make sure that our news coverage and reporting is as accurate as it can be, and the analysis is as level-headed of an approach as it can be as well, calling the shots for what they are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I got to thank everyone for still coming here and watching this show, because each and every single one of y'all gives us the inspiration and really the pride and honor to be able to cover the news for all of y'all, and we're always appreciative of that every day. So before we move on into this bombshell news out of the United States of America and all of the major developments that came out of Europe today pertaining to the Middle East situation and also the war in Ukraine, I do want to make sure that we take a brief moment to get 3 questions from the chat, and then we'll be moving on into that huge news that we got out of America and elsewhere today. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first of 3 super chats, our first one is a very generous $100 support from none other than Cerebrus3. And thank you very much, Cerebrus, for that very generous support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. They said, keep up the good work and factual information, guys.
And thank you so much, Cerebrus3, for that humongous, amazing support. And thank you so much for enjoying our work and our attempt to get out the most factual information that we can on what's going on around the world. Like I was saying, segueing us into this, we put a lot of pride and work into this every single day. And I've got to say that on behalf of us both, we are entirely appreciative of so many people considering this channel to be their primary source of news. It means a lot, especially to me. I was the one who started the channel a long time ago, and I had always been told my whole life growing up that talking about this kind of stuff was absolutely stupid, and I had to focus on more important things, like, you know, what I'm eating for dinner and stuff. And it turns out that I actually was able to do this as a living. So it means a lot to me every single night to be able to get on air and do this, because I always kind of wanted to do this in the back of my head. I just never thought it would be a reality to do this as my daily job. And me, myself, just speaking from my own thoughts and aspirations, it's an amazing thing to know that we get to get on here every night and be able to do this every single day. So humongous thanks to you incredibly for that once again, Cerebrus3, because you're helping me to keep my dream alive to be able to do this every day, which I never thought would be possible. And you also help us to be able to make sure that news coverage is a reality for millions of people every single month. Every month nowadays, the Enforcer channel provides news to about 9 million viewers to 10 million viewers every single month, which is a crazy large amount of people. I think that's about 2.5 Utahs worth of people, which is quite a lot. And I got to say that we're hugely appreciative and extremely grateful for everyone watching this news and you helping to keep on running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $72 support from BC Skyman, and thank you very much, BC, for that very generous support as well. He did not leave a comment, but he did leave the super stickers, and he left one of the YouTube creature. I guess a Borg. It says op. I guess in Star Trek, the Borg were the ops. So I guess that is true. But thank you very much, BC, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you massively for the support, BC Skyman. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And while you didn't throw in a comment, you've been around forever and have thrown in so many nice words over the years. You don't even have to throw in a comment for us to know you really appreciate the channel, and we've appreciated you being around for such a long time, pretty much since the beginning of our daily coverage, and being a rock of the Lee Spring Army. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to get on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of our breaking news for the night.
All right, and this one's going to go to Ross Nibb, and thank you very much, Ross, for that $50 support. He said, IRGC women with man pads on parade in Iran. I don't see any chance of peace with these folks. LSA.
I don't either. And I don't know why we're acting like deal making is possible. You know, I gotta say this, folks. I just gotta be a little bit honest. I get that that's like the whole president shtick because he wrote a book about it, but can we like drop the whole, you know, art of the deal shtick for like, you know, a reasonable amount of time, maybe the rest of the term, and just deal with things the way they should be dealt with? Can't we deal with things where clearly we're dealing with terrorists? Mm-hmm.
It's not that. I think it's actually worse than that. I don't think there's a preference to make a deal. I think if they could, I think the U.S. would simply steamroll the Iranian regime if they had the ability to do that. It's a little bit harder than they thought, and they've gotten in a little bit too deep. So now they're kind of floundering a bit like a fish, and that's why they're engaging in this deal talk. That's my guess, because this doesn't seem to be the way, because I mean the way is usually to steamroll people. That's usually the way it's done with this art of the deal situation. And then once people are at the guy's mercy, then the deal gets made. But I mean, right now Iran still has leverage. They're really not at our mercy necessarily. We're kind of at each other's mercy. So I think it's a little bit deeper than that.
I'd have to say that to me, I think it's the deal making shtick, because that's the same shtick that we've done with Ukraine the whole time as well for almost a year and a half now. Is we have to make a deal, and it's like clearly the Russians don't want to make a deal. We've seen that so many times that there's no reason of even saying that it's a given, and yet we still go with the whole deal making shtick there, and the whole I've ended 9 wars. It's like, really, who cares? Because if you end them and they are ended in the crappiest way possible, who really cares? And on top of it, another thing is that is definitely the case, and this is one that really has gotten my goat a great deal over this war, is that at the beginning of the war, folks, I said, obviously, something has been done wrong because we didn't deal with Hormuz first, which is the biggest threat that they would pose immediately at the outbreak of a war. So someone must have been in charge of the war planning that didn't know that, because literally any amateur, including myself, would know that the Strait of Hormuz is the biggest threat that Iran could pose to us. Like I was saying before the war, and many of our viewers who were here before this war started would know this without a doubt. I was saying this time and time again every day leading up to the war. We have to deal with the Strait of Hormuz because while we can militarily destroy Iran, they could economically destroy us if we don't deal with that. Y'all were hearing that for weeks before this war started. Actually, the entirety of the beginning of this year before the war started, and yet we never dealt with that at the beginning of the war. And it turns out, by the president's own admission on audio recording, if you remember this one, Matthew, he stated that the whole reason why Hormuz wasn't dealt with is because they only expected it to be going on for 3 days. And that was said in a statement to where he was talking about he was on the phone with the British Prime Minister asking them to get militarily involved, and the British Prime Minister was saying, I don't know, that might not be politically popular in my country, I have to check around with my cabinet, so it might be a couple of days in before we can join. And then the president said, well, by 3 days, this whole thing's going to be over, so joining afterwards would be completely pointless because the whole thing will be done in over World War I. It was an audio recording where he was at like a press briefing, and he stated it as a quick aside. We actually covered it here on the channel when it was said, and so the audio recording is on one of our maps.
I must not remember it.
Yeah, but I mean, that was specifically said, which specifically stated that the war was only going to last, according to the president, who was apparently the grand planner of this whole thing, 3 days, which is the same thing the Russians said starting the war in Ukraine. And I don't know why in the world we would work with war planning off of that, because you can't ever start and end a war in 3 days. It doesn't happen. If it does happen, you've achieved nothing, basically, in those 3 days, like we did with Maduro. I mean, we grabbed Maduro out of the country, and the whole Hugo Chavez socialist regime in Venezuela is still running the country in charge, just without the fat dude with a mustache that ate empanadas on live TV, but everyone else is still there running the country as a dictatorship. So, it's like, what difference did that make? You could end it, you could start and end it in 2 hours, but what did we really do? And we didn't really achieve anything as far as upending the socialist regime in Venezuela. And so now we're dealing with Iran, and we expected it to all be over in 3 days after Khomeini died, which is a very bad way to war plan, because nothing ever ends in 3 days, ever. Like, not even the quickest wars the U.S. has ever fought has ended in 3 days. Like, a serious war, for that matter. So, it's generally the blunder that we're seeing right now is basically because the war planning was done by someone who doesn't know how to war plan, and because they sit there and just basically hype themselves up to saying that they do everything the greatest and the best. This military plan was going to be the greatest, the biggest, and the best. There's no way that it could fail. It's going to be a 100% success rate and everything. There's no chance of failure. And that's not how you war plan. You always war plan off of everything is screwed up and the worst case scenario happens, and how do we fight that war? Because if you plan that way, then anything that ends up being neutral or positive is actually a significant improvement off of the war plan that you went into the conflict with. But anyways, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best I can, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, we wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to keep reporting the news each and every single day, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So with that in mind, it is time for us to move on and out of the Middle East and on into the Pentagon, as we got news today. that apparently the Secretary of the Navy has been removed from his position by the Secretary of Defense, according to the Wall Street Journal. According to what the Wall Street Journal stated, the Secretary of Defense was reportedly annoyed about Felons, who is the Secretary of the Navy, close relationship with the president, including his direct pitch of the Trump-class battleship that bypassed Pentagon leadership. So we do understand that John C. Felon is now gone, or Phelan, apparently, not felon. It looks
Yeah,
like
it's Phelan. It's not felon. It's definitely not felon.
well, it looks to me like felon. Like that's what it looks like to me. But apparently it's Phelan. I did not know that going into this. But a little bit interesting with that. And it's in the midst of the ongoing whole situation that the Navy has to deal with the blockade of the Hormuz and all of that. So a lot of people have been bringing that one up and saying, oh, well, that might cause some issues. You know, maybe a problem here and there. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so right now the details are murky. We're seeing mainstream media report that he was allegedly fired, meaning the Navy Secretary, but that's according to mainstream media reports. We have not gotten an official statement from the Pentagon, nor have we gotten an official statement from the guy that was allegedly fired. So we don't really know the exact circumstances, but right now, though, it's being painted by mainstream media like this guy apparently had some type of grievance between himself, and the Secretary of War. So that's what's going around, but we're not totally sure. But the big deal is, though, we're in the middle of a war, and now we're also in the middle of a naval blockade, and they just let the naval secretary go. He either resigned or he was fired, one or the other. And this is just weeks after the Army Chief of Staff was let go as well, and he simply resigned, fired, however you want to call it. He's also gone as well. So two major oustings very close together like that in the middle of a war. So will it cause problems or not? 53% said that is going to cause problems, while 31% said it'll probably be fine in the end and probably won't have an effect. And 7% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I'll be honest, like, even if your guys are not that great, like, for example, the naval secretary, to be switching them out in the middle of a war is a little bit questionable, especially when you're in the middle of a very precarious situation like this. It seems to be a little bit troublesome. Also, if this guy was truly let go and that turns out to be the case, and it's proven that that is the case, then it's a little bit concerning that apparently it might have been a petty squabble that led to that. And apparently it's not an issue with his competence. It's an issue about getting along in the office. If that's the case, I mean, that indicates larger problems than simply being competent or not. This indicates a problem with the work environment, possibly. So, I'm very curious about the details about why this guy resigned or was fired or whatever, because it seems a little bit questionable. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'd actually be with a 31%. This is probably going to end up being fine in the end because I'm going to speak a little bit as to the background in knowledge and experience that this guy had before he became the Secretary of the Navy. And it is basically non-existent as far as the being a Secretary of the Navy would be concerned, and the kind of practicable experience, or at least interest that one would have to become the Secretary of the Navy. According to what I can find online about him, he apparently graduated from Harvard University or Harvard Business School in 1990 and then went to the London School of Economics. Before he became the Secretary of Navy in 2022, he resigned as the CEO of MSD, a founder Rugger Management LLC, a private investment company based in Palm Beach, Florida, appearing to show that his main background was finance and not that of anything of the martial senses.
You said, what, you talking about West Palm Beach?
Yeah, like West Palm Beach.
Holy moly.
And let's see here. He also, let's see. Well, I got to tell y'all, folks, the guy literally was just involved in investment in Palm Beach, Florida, before he became the Secretary of the Navy. He doesn't appear to have had any background or interest in the Navy or anything dealing with anything in the maritime world. He just was in investment, and then he became the Secretary of the Navy. So the guy has really no practicable knowledge, experience, or even interest to be Secretary of the Navy. And I want to make that clear that you don't have to have experience, like, say, be in the Navy to be the Secretary of the Navy, because if you all don't know, Teddy Roosevelt, who was the Secretary of the Navy, along with FDR, who also was the Secretary of the Navy as well, neither of them had served in the U.S. Navy directly, yet they both ended up being quite exceptional secretaries of the Navy because they had a significant interest in those maritime and naval concerns, which one who would be the Secretary of Navy would have to be interested in. It also appears, much like this is saying right here, he was also the one that pioneered what I would describe as the dumbest ship design in the modern day, the Trump-class battleship, which is largely a waste of resources, material, and personnel and funding for the U.S. Navy's new warship initiatives, as multiple tests on similar platforms over the prior decades have shown that a ship of this type and design would generally be woefully inadequate and not up to speed with what modern naval warfare looks like. So the fact that this guy came up with this, which I remember saying a long time ago when we heard about this thing being unveiled, that it looks like the machinations of a 6-year-old child that was allowed to design a ship for the Navy. I generally would say that this guy probably is not too going, well, at least in my opinion, I'm not going to be sorely missing him. He is going to be replaced by Hung Kao, who is this fellow right here. This guy actually does have, which I would say is a considerable improvement, some actual service within the Navy under his belt for some significant period of time, and has also been involved in politics, so a little bit of a career politician after his military service, which would give him an understanding of the political dynamics in Washington that would probably make him pretty decent as a Secretary of the Navy to be able to appropriate funding for the Navy and spending bills that would be passed annually. And not only that, he also has some general, at least tangible knowledge of how the Navy operates as compared to Phelan, who had literally no knowledge of anything concerning the Navy.
Yeah, I see him. So you're telling me the guy that just left, he was not in the Navy?
Yeah, he was never in the Navy. You don't have to be in the Navy to be the Secretary of the Navy. You just have to kind of be like smart on the politics side and at least be interested in the Navy and listening to advisors and all. But, you know, an MBA from Harvard Business School and then going to London School of Economics and not even getting close to being interested or doing anything related to the military, from what we can tell publicly, kind of doesn't really line you up to be the Secretary of the Navy.
Yeah, maybe they realized that in the middle of a war, you might want to have somebody that's actually like served in the military, possibly. Like maybe they realized that now that they gotten bogged down in a real like batshit scenario, they're like, well, we might want to replace him with Hung Kao, who's actually apparently served in the military, that actually knows what he's doing. So, I mean, maybe they'll be better off, possibly. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, you know, like, I hope. I don't really think you can get much farther
Man.
down than that, really. I mean, in terms
Hung
of
Kao for
practical
the win.
I hope. I hope. I mean, you know, but with that, you know, a little bit of an interesting thing there. It's now time for us, though, to move on from that whole deal. And it's time for us to move on and out into Europe, as we have been able to get some more interesting news and developments out of Europe over the course of this day. Also, by the way, folks, I want to say this because this is something that I do have to say. Like, you do not have to be prior serving in the military to be a good Secretary of the Army or the Navy or any of those branches for that matter, because there have been some incredible and exceptional Secretaries of the Navy that never had any prior service under their belt. Teddy Roosevelt's the greatest example. Teddy Roosevelt was just obsessed with the Navy before he became the Secretary, and he actually wrote a book, a historical book, on the Navy, the U.S. Navy, that was so well written and so thorough and detailed that he became a bestseller in the United States during his time. And he actually became incredibly popular with people in the naval circles because they're like, wow, this guy has no actual experience in the Navy, has basically never gone to sea, but he knows almost everything about it. So maybe we should make him the Secretary of the Navy. And while Teddy Roosevelt was the Secretary of the Navy, he did pretty damn good. Like, he was actually a significant driving force in the modernization and the growth of the U.S. Navy during his tenure as the Secretary, and did exceptionally well in that role. And then also FDR, who is his cousin, also became, I believe, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy and the Secretary of the Navy, and did fairly well as well, generally carrying on the family lineage of having some interest in the U.S. Navy, which, to be entirely honest with you, if you want to be in government, the Navy is an incredibly important thing to know, because while everyone, like myself, looks at the Army and the Air Force as some of our more interesting branches in the Marines, the Navy is really what gets us the gravy. It allows us to control the shipping routes around the entirety of the world at sea, and by that control, we have significant sway over how things go economically globally, which is really why the Navy is probably one of our most important branches.
Yeah, hopefully the new guy realizes that we need to compete with China's Navy because, that's one thing that the U.S. Navy's gotten behind on is shipbuilding. So hopefully the guy understands that and will actually, implement ship designs that are not just simply throwing a politician's name on it. Hopefully they'll actually put some thought into it. So, we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Well, I'm sure, Matthew, that we'll be able to scrounge up someone else from West Palm Beach. Maybe Jimmy the panhandler can be the next undersecretary of the Navy or something. I don't know. Because I gotta say, folks, it is a little bit exceptional. Wouldn't y'all all agree that basically everybody in the government that wasn't popular before this current administration all come from Palm Beach? Like, how many people are that competent in Palm Beach? I mean, generally we have to comb the whole nation to find people in most administrations, but somehow, some way, like half the people in the current government are from West Palm Beach.
Yeah, I tell you. Oh
It's
boy,
literally,
I
it's
tell
literally
you
just
what.
at this point.
I don't know what. Man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take a minute. I'll be back.
Okay, well, I mean, just to kind of carry on with that for a minute. I mean, how much, you know, I feel like at this point, folks, we have the Breakfast Club at Mar-a-Lago running like half the U.S. government because it literally everybody's just from West Palm Beach at this point. Like when you look into most of them, they have like some sort of West Palm Beach relation. Like I don't even understand it. I wish I had a laugh track right now for Matthew. I wish he would unmute his mic because I know he's dying over there right now. But
Oh man,
it's insane.
honestly, it is insane. It really is insane. I don't know. Like it just seems like. Also, by the way, are they going to let the guy stay in that position? Because I think what is he, the acting Secretary of the Navy at this point? Mr. Cow, are they going to let him stay there, or are they going to replace him with somebody else?
Technically, I think he would have to be approved by the Senate to hold that, well, maintain his holding of that position. Because right now he's the acting Secretary of the Navy, but he's not the actual Secretary of the Navy yet. So they might allow him to be there, and I guess that's a bit of an improvement. He's not from the West Palm Beach Breakfast Club at Mar-a-Lago, so I guess that's a little bit of an improvement. But you never know. I gotta say, folks, it's a little bit interesting to me. The special envoy of the United States is from the West Palm Beach, generally an investment in real estate. The Secretary of the Navy was from West Palm Beach, generally an investment and all that sort of stuff. I think we're starting to get a running trend, folks. The last people we need in any positions in the government are people from West Palm Beach that were involved in real estate or finance because they seem to be the most lost at doing everything.
Yeah, they need qualified people, that's for sure. I think they're realizing that, and hopefully they'll make a shift to people that are really, really the best qualified for the position, I would say.
Oh,
And
I'm sure.
just because somebody has name recognition, by the way, doesn't mean they're qualified. Like that's a huge misconception. Like people think, oh, if you've heard of somebody, they must be good. It's like not necessarily. Like even if somebody is not publicly known, if they're considered an expert in their field and they're generally under the radar, that should be the person that gets the job, not some person that's known by everybody. This isn't a popularity contest. It's about getting the job done. So hopefully they pick somebody that's, competent, but also not famous either.
You know, I mean, was this guy really known by anybody though? And was the special envoy really known by anybody? Because I feel like in the Mar-a-Lago circle, he might have been known by people, but I never knew of them before they got their positions. If you know what I mean. Like they're all in the
If you
investment
were
and real estate circle in West Palm Beach.
Well, yeah, if you're in that world though, like you've heard of them, definitely. So that's when I say name recognition, it's people that are known in these circles, not necessarily someone who's just like really good at their job, but they're also like known amongst these circles. So that's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, folks, they're really picking the best. I remember the president said he always picks the best. The best at being bad examples, I guess, at this point, because I mean, you know. The literal spreadsheet of experience that guy had. Like, he's not even interested in the Navy. Why in the world would he ever be the Secretary of the Navy? That's like saying this guy is a gardener and he likes growing tulips in Craig, Colorado. So let's go make him the Secretary of Urban Housing and Development. It's like, what would he know about that? Like, he's not even interested in that. So how good would he do?
Yeah. Or putting somebody that's not a doctor in charge of, the health of the entire country. That's also another questionable choice.
Well, actually, Matthew, they got that one covered. The president's a doctor, see, with the red robes and all that. Yeah, they already got that one covered. Clearly, doctors look like that. But moving us on out of that whole deal with the Secretary of the Navy, it is time for us to move on out of that freak show and on into London, as we did get to hear that apparently 30 nations are going to be having a 2-day meeting in London to be able to talk about the situation with the Hormuz and draw up some detailed plans as to what in the world they're going to do. So I hope they can come up with something, because I think at this point they could do better than what the current U.S. administration keeps planning up and executing on, which is basically nothing. Moving us on from that, in some unfortunate news, we also heard that the Estonian defense minister stated the U.S. put all outgoing ammunition shipments on hold. I'm going to be straight up. This picture of the Estonian defense minister is almost like a meme. Like, he looks like he is living in hell. He's like, these shipments have stopped. Like, it's like, damn, dude. It's like a... Jeez, this guy has a chiseled jaw, nose, and everything. And with the shading there, he looks like he's in a rough spot. But outside of that, it appears the United States is halting most shipments to Baltic states at the moment and diverting most of that weaponry and munitions towards the U.S. forces down in the Middle East. So take that for what you will. The United States also signed an agreement while we're out of munitions with Lithuania today for $214 million worth of AIM-9X Sidewinder Block 2 missiles for the Lithuanian armed forces. The government of Lithuania has requested to buy an additional 152 AIM-9X Block 2 Sidewinder tactical missiles, 8 AIM-9X Block 2 tactical guidance units, 6 AIM-9X Block 2 captive air training missiles, and the U.S. government and contractor engineering, technical, logistics, and support services, and other related elements of logistics and program support that will be added to the previously implemented case whose value was under the congressional notification threshold. So it does appear that while the U.S. is out of weapons, we're more than willing to sign contracts with countries to give them weapons when we get weapons. Moving us on out of all that news, it's now time for us to get to Russia. I'm sure everything was fine today, and nothing bad happened at all. Opa!
Oh, wow, they just took down the whole concrete thing there. Look at that.
Man, that thing kind of swimming. Oh, look, it's doing a little barrel roll. Isn't that cute?
And why did this occur?
There was never an explanation given.
Interesting. Oh, look, the guy got out. Oh, he did that Mythbusters trick. They'd let the car pressure equalize with... He let the car pressure equalize with the water pressure. This guy's acting a little funny, though. What's he doing?
Oh, wow. Look, he's swimming like a fish. I guess, Russia's Russia. Great way to start off our coverage in Russia today. So, moving us on down and into the general area of southern Russia in the southern military district, there has been another drone attack that is ongoing over the course of this day within the Russian Federation, which I'm sure will be producing very positive results. And it already kind of did. There was an attack on Feodosia that did hit the oil tanks again, which we can see right here. Opa! Well, what a nice fire. Down in Tuapse, it's literally raining money. And when I say money, I mean oil. The oil fire in Tuapse is continuing. And that sounds like music, so we're going to mute that.
I thought that was explosions for a second. I was about to say, wow, they're having some secondaries going off, but wow, that's awful.
That's terrible. That's so much oil. A Russian, if they were smart, would whip out a vacuum right now and start sucking up the open air, because they'd be able to get a good amount of oil that way, and that would be worth at least $50, which in Russia is like $1 million.
Yeah, I would say so. But seriously though, this is like a horrible humanitarian crisis at this point, because this fire has been going on for ages now, and also all this oil, which is what's in that smoke right there, and all these hard chemicals are getting literally rained down on the entire area, like not just the town of Tuapse, but also the surrounding areas as well. So I heard today that some guy who's apparently a chemist inside of Russia was saying that the cloud is so toxic that's going over everything. They're saying that it could cause death basically to anybody that breathes it in. I'm not sure if that's an exaggeration or that's the way it's actually that deadly or not, but I would assume it's going to cause some bad health effects.
It's probably going to cause respiratory issues, but I don't think it would cause like instant death because it is just crude oil. We also got to see another clip of the fire here. Wow. Looks like a volcano erupting like Mount St. Helens. You know, the Russians could have avoided this whole thing, folks, if they just didn't invade Ukraine and try and keep the war going for 4 straight years. This wouldn't be happening at this point. But, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. You know, you play stupid games and your nation wins stupid prizes. So, you know, I guess that's what happens.
Man, I feel like they're going to rename this city to Cancer Alley before it's over with.
Man, they're going to be naming this thing Tuapse because everybody going to be crouping in there. We also got to hear that the Tuapse refinery was still burning in this clip.
Момент, на текущий момент, вернее. И погода говно, холодно еще.
And the rain started to arrive.
Еще лето вообще не наступает, что-то в этом году даже не пахнет.
And with the gentle rain that cometh from above, we saw that the oil began to return to below. In this clip here, we were able to witness the pure oil sludge that is beginning to rain down on the city of Tuapse because the rains are condensating the oil and bringing it back down to the earth below in nice little raindrops. Take a look at this slick of oil or water, depending on whichever way you want to look at it.
Такие вот у нас черные лужи. Все мазут. Мазута.
The whole city's getting a Diddy shower. They're all getting oil rain down straight on them.
Man. I heard, Matthew, that in Russia they're calling these Chinese tears.
Man, I tell you what, this has caused a lot of invasions over the years, but I don't think anybody wants to invade here.
I don't think so. It's literally the hood.
Вот прям масляный налет. Вот он.
Wow,
that is really nasty, though. I mean, look at that. That's bad.
Man, honestly though, that's a lot of money in that puddle. I mean, whip out a straw and siphon that stuff out. That's like $50 right there. Honestly, the Ukrainians are redistributing the wealth just like Marxist ideology dictates, and the Russians should be big fans of that. They still love Marxism and Lenin. So you know, the Ukrainians redistributing the oil wealth to the people of the Russian Federation should be something that the Russian people are all for. Once again, I mean, if the Russians had just ended this war, we wouldn't be seeing that the Ukrainians would be equally distributing the wealth amongst the Russian people and making sure that they all get their share of oil via the rains from above. I guess they ain't blessing the rains down in Russia, but the rains down in Africa are still fairly blessed. Sadly, though, it's not blessed enough for the Ugandans because the Turks never gave that guy that $1 billion and the finest woman in Turkey, so apparently the rains down in Africa just aren't that blessed. But anyways, moving us on out of that, we also got to hear in Moscow today that Putin made an announcement of blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. They stated they'd be willing to meet with Zelensky, but he has to unconditionally surrender for them to meet. So nothing new there. Moving us on out of Moscow. Now it's time for us to get on into the front lines of Ukraine. And there was actually a lot that went on there. But before we get to that, there's some big news that we have out of Kyiv today. Ukraine will finally receive a $90 billion euro loan, which is 106 billion US dollars, from the European Union after Hungary lifted its veto after Magyar became the Prime Minister of Hungary. We now understand that this will be helping Ukraine significantly in terms of arms and resources and equipment from the European Union, as they will now be able to use these funds to purchase what they need from the European Union and fight the war as they should. And a lot of people are currently talking about this massive and great news that came out today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So this is actually huge right here, but I will say the optimism around it kind of got tamped down a little bit because you had the former Hungarian leadership trying to hold the situation up. So it didn't quite get the attention it deserved today, but this is massive though, because this loan getting approved right here from the EU for 90 billion euros, which is approximately about 106 billion USD, which is obviously a whopping amount of money for Ukraine through this defense loan. Apparently it was approved today after Hungary's pipeline was repaired. So what are your thoughts? How much will this actually help Ukraine? 47% said Ukraine will now be able to fight for years. Bad news for Russia. 24% said Ukraine still needs U.S. weapons, and 20% said Ukraine will still struggle against Russia. So now that this loan is approved, Russia is in deep trouble because Russia's economy is a ticking time bomb right now at this point. Their economy is already going through the absolute gutter right now, and they can't survive for multiple more years unless China completely bails them out. And it's still questionable whether or not China can pull off a bailout of that size. That might be too large for even China. China has been propping up Russia, but there's about to be a pretty big landslide. It's about to happen inside of Russia once they can't keep selling their oil, etc. So now that Ukraine can keep going for years, I think at this point, this is pretty much going to guarantee Ukrainian success, and they're probably going to win the war, probably outright, because the Russian economy simply won't be able to handle it. They can't hold out for those many years. So I would say Russia's pretty much screwed. This is not good news for them, which means, unfortunately, that Russia's probably going to escalate. They're probably going to do something stupid because they know that they're going to lose on the horizon. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I think the Ukrainians are in good position and standing at this point to keep the war going for longer than the Russians could, at least economically right now, because the Ukrainians will be able to make sure to materially supply themselves with almost everything they need to fight the war at this point, until the Russians tap out economically. So I'm pretty sure that the Russians are going to be sweating on this one because it's going to be ensuring that the Ukrainians can survive. The Ukrainians have been doing quite well recently. They've been able to inflict significant casualties on the Russians while mitigating theirs almost down to non-existence from what we've been able to see, at least from recent figures. And because of that, the Ukrainians will be able to materially survive the war, and they'll be able to economically survive the war as well. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because that's what I'm seeing and that's what I'm hearing right now. Moving us on from that, we also got to see that within the Kursk direction, near to the city of Sudzha, that there was a little Ukrainian drone attack that happened in this area against Russian artillery. Got them out the bliet, and they hit it. And they hit another one. That looked like it missed a B. Oh, another missed a B. Or maybe a D20. Oh, bliet.
Mr. B.
Mr. B? Oh, man, I like it. Oh, man. Let me see if I can muster the energy for it. I am giving away $500,000. But anyways, we can see them continuing to hit Russian outposts and artillery along the Kursk border. Oh, man.
This is a new strategy here. They're trying to build like a fake forest around it. They're trying to pile up sticks.
Man, they say that sticks and stones may break your bones, but they won't hide you from the Ukrainians. And that's a fairly true old saying. I mean, that's been the old saying, never changed, never changed. If you remember it some way differently, that's just the Mandela effect. It was always that way. But moving us on from that and into the location unknowns, we also got the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours. And according to Miss DC, keeper of the records, troop losses are above average, but others are below. And over the past 24 hours, we were able to see that 1,140 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 7 APCs, 162 supply trucks, along with 1 main battle tank, 38 artillery pieces, and 1,026 drones. Generally, a pretty good day, all things considered, and while the loss reports for equipment is not incredibly high, it is still showing us that the Ukrainians have high spirits, and they're keeping the fight on, which is always a wonderful and incredible thing to see. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on out of that little location unknown on into the front lines. Today was an exciting day for many people. We were able to hear that down near the area of the Konstantinivka and Pokrovsk front, the fighting 93rd, the famous 93rd Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, was able to make its resurgence into wartime footage here on this channel by engaging the Russian forces near to Rusin Yar, which is a small village between the Konstantinivka and Pokrovsk front, generally something along the Dobropilia axis. This was actually close to the location that a Russian battalion was encircled and destroyed about last year, around the same area. But we can see here that the Ukrainians are once again putting down a lot of suffering on the Russians. Get on into that bunker, Bliet. Turning on the flashlight and getting busy.
Look at this trash down here. Look at all this trash. It's like a freaking landfill.
Man, it sounds like one too. Just making sure to clear it out nice and easy. And we can see they found some more.
Oh, wow.
And that guy sounded just kind of like mildly inconvenienced. A Russian literally popped up like 6 feet in front of me and went, "Oh, be there, man!" Like it was like, "Oh shit!" And they just started firing. Now we see the firefighters commenced at point-blank ranges.
Обещаю жить! Слово офицера! Вам не выжить! Сейчас прилетает Баба Яга и вам пизда нахуй! У вас 5 секунд, или мы вас разъебаем! На 6 часов! На 6 часов, пидор, расстреливайся!
Now it sounds like he's getting a little bit frustrated and not giving up. And so they blew up the bunker that they were in. That fixed the problem. But moving
this club just fades out into the oblivion.
Yeah, honestly. Kind of crazy footage right there. But
they took care of that problem. It's over with.
Man, they said, "Give up and surrender." And then they did. And he was like, "Son of a bitch." And then probably just throw a bomb in there. It's like, well, I guess that kind of dealt with it. I mean, fairly quick. But, it's war. It is what it is. We've been watching this for 4 years. The Ukrainians are just getting really effective at the whole offer of surrender. The Russians give one refusal. They're like, okay, that's enough. And then they toss a bomb in. And that generally deals with the problem. We also get to see the Russian logistics were also getting hit within this general area as well by Ukrainian FPV drones, which we saw in this clip. Oh, oppa, and a whole lot of nothing. Oppa.
Why did it look like a street out of the Truman Show? Like the grass was too green, the roads were too clean looking on the side. I thought this was a war zone. What the hell are we looking at? Look at this. It's like, look at this guy. Just a man going down the road on his moped, just simply engaging in wartime activities.
Man, it's springtime over there. Everything's looking fluorescent green, like neon green at this point.
Man, springtime for Putin.
I know what you're about. Like you're about to do that thing from that movie.
I was about to, and I was like, wait a minute. I can't do that here.
Oh man. That's one hell of a movie, by the way, folks. I think it's called, like, The Producers or something like that. And they make this crazy play because they're expecting it to flop because of how crazy it is. And it actually ends up being wildly popular for some reasons. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but it's actually a really funny movie, honestly. And y'all should give it a watch sometimes. But anyways, we were able to see that they were continuing to hit and destroy Russian logistics with a great deal of effect today. Look at that. Ooh.
Oh, wow. A nice dirt bike right in the shed. That was a win.
Man, what a win. We also saw that, unfortunately, one Ukrainian drone did go errant today in Donetsk and unfortunately hit a residential high-rise building. This Liudi right here, or an FP2, whatever you would like to call it, unfortunately ran into that high-rise about right at this point in the video right here.
Dang, it's that Russian electronic warfare again.
Maybe. Hopefully that would be the case. Well, moving us on from that, and on all that little bit of news out of Donetsk, we also got to see down near the Huilopol direction that the Ukrainian armed forces were continuing to knock out more Russian attackers near to the Huilopol direction. There's one of them. Oh, also he's just wandering around, just kind of fiddling around. Oh, there's a Ukrainian soldier right there. I bet you the drone operators are vectoring the Ukrainians in on that Russian's location, I'm pretty sure. Oh, there he goes. He's just wandering along, just kind of meandering, grazing even. Now we see the Ukrainian soldier coming on out and taking a little look, popping a shot at him here and there. It appears that Russian is laid down to take a bit of a nap. So a little bit unfortunate for him. In the middle of a firefight too. Very, very unfortunate timing. We also get to see that there were some explosions in Melitopol. We believe that these might have been on the substation again, but we're not entirely sure and we cannot confirm that yet. But the Ukrainians have been trying to target and knock out that electrical substation for quite some time at this point, as it appears to be a key strategic target within the area, as it provides significant amounts of electricity to Russian rear line forces that operate logistics, communications, and command hubs out of the area of Melitopol and the surrounding cities. So generally, from what we can tell, it certainly does appear that, at least at the moment, the Ukrainians are continuing their attacks against critical infrastructure within the area of the occupied regions. But with that in mind, folks, that is all of the news that we had for the D. Every single bit of it. And we were able to knock that out in an hour and 50 minutes tonight. I've got to thank you all so much for watching our news segment. We're about to be moving on into the second segment of this news, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, is it an absolute blast. We get to talk about literally anything and everything except for religion and politics and climate change and whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare or not. But nevertheless, we're going to make sure to get into that starting right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our super chat questions, our live chat questions, and also everything else in between. And also, by the way, we have been scanning for breaking news as we always do tonight. And so far tonight, it's been generally pretty quiet during the stream. There's been some true social posts out there, but they're not worth addressing, to be perfectly honest. There's nothing of substance to address. So we'll skip on those for the moment. But in the meantime, though, basically, I see a lot of people saying, oh, what are we waiting for, guys? Like, what's coming up? We're just simply waiting for the U.S. to actually basically pull the trigger on starting the war again. That's what we're waiting for right now. And in between that, Iran's still taking action. We're seeing Iran, like we went over earlier, start seizing vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. They're possibly laying mines again. So the hostilities are coming, but the U.S. keeps pushing it off for whatever reason. So we're simply waiting on the U.S. to actually follow through, basically. So that's what we're waiting for. But anyways, though, in the meantime, though, I have a feeling we'll be waiting for a minute on that. So moving into our super chats, this one goes to Chris Feilbach, and Chris put in a $50 support, and thank you very much, good sir, for that support all the time, and we do appreciate that. And Chris said that today's orb of the day is color blind. That's the well-defined, and this super chat feels too short. So to that end, I've been talking to the Japanese on X, and their bluntness is second to none, and it's frankly very refreshing. The orb approves.
I think it's so true. The orb word of the day, Chris, and I gotta say that the Japanese, internet users are very interesting. You know, every once in a while, folks, we get a little look behind the Great Firewall in China. Not speaking of Japan here, and it's really interesting. They have memes in China, and they're memeing. They meme hard in China. It's just that unfortunately we rarely ever get to see how good it is. Japan is also pretty similar in that regard, but we just don't really get a lot of access to it because of the language barrier, at least here in America. But they are really funny. Like, I gotta say, the Japanese people have some really interesting ways of making memes and talking about stuff on the internet. And so it's really cool to hear that you've been able to witness that firsthand, because they are really, really interesting folks. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I hope that does address that well. And I know that a lot of people really do like Japan. Everybody loves Japan. Japan is a very popular country in the States these days. Why don't we take a look, speaking of which, Matthew, at a Japanese city? Matthew, pick one that's not Tokyo.
Let's see here. Take us to Fukushima.
One that's not irradiated.
I mean, not the whole place isn't irradiated. It's just part of it.
You want to look at the city of Fukushima, or like the Fukushima Daiichi power plant?
The city of Fukushima, not the nuclear disaster side of the ages. I'm talking about the city.
All right, so let's get near to the train station, because that'll be the central part of the city. So,
yeah, see, it's functioning. It's functioning here. There's no trouble here. It's just the exclusion zone outside the city. It's kind of like Chernobyl.
Look at it. Oh well, that paint's kind of wearing away, but and these tracks are kind of overgrown, actually. Damn. Dude, that would not fly in the United States, man. They'd be whipping out that industrial cancer-grade pesticide and spraying that everywhere to get rid of this stuff. Like, look at that. Like, there's grass growing in the rails.
This is a place in Japan that you're not supposed to see, but thanks to Enforcer Tour Group, we're able to show you things that they don't want you to see. It's like, it's like those videos, those like clickbait videos. They're like, this is what the Japanese government doesn't want you to see. Look at this.
Honestly, it's not bad looking though. It's pretty nice looking,
Yeah, it's I will say it's a little bit depressing. Like, Fukushima is not the crown jewel of Japan. I will say that.
Yeah, like everyone always looks at, folks, when they talk about like foreign countries. They always look at the greatest places in those foreign countries, and then they compare them to an average or below level place in the United States. And I always find that interesting, because honestly, when I look at this, like, this feels like the Japanese equivalent of, like, Birmingham, Alabama, kind of, like, a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Fukushima, actually. I've never actually seen it from street view, so that's the first time I'm seeing it. First time I'm hearing about it, actually.
Well, not the first time you should recommend. Like you're like, let's go to Fukushima. Like
Oh no, I'm
Fukushima.
doing like I'm doing like the president. You know how he does. He's like,
Oh yeah.
I'm the first. This is the first time hearing about this. I don't know who that person is. Who is this person I've known for 50 years?
That's a really cool little alley right there. That's really neat.
Yeah, it is. It could be neat, possibly, depending on if you can make it out alive.
Oh, you can make it out alive. I mean, crime is like non-existent in Japan. Well, that's actually a lie. Crime actually is kind of, it depends on where you're at in Japan. It's not to the level that we have here, but there are dangerous places in Japan. But beyond that, though, let's pick another city, Matthew. One that would be like a middle of the road city, if we could take a good guess at that, because I don't know a middle of the road city in Japan. Where in the world would one of those?
Take me to the atomic mounds of Hiroshima.
Down here?
Yeah, that's Hiroshima or Hiroshima, depending on who you ask. Look, isn't there like a monument in here for the nuke?
Yeah, it's this one right here.
The piece. Oh, they actually have pieces from the situation.
Yeah, they actually have artifacts and stuff. Look, they have a model of the Fat Man.
Yikes!
It's kind of a little morbid when you think about that.
Yeah, really.
It's like this is what wiped out the city. It's like, huh? I don't know how I'd feel about going into this museum, honestly, as an American, because I feel like all of the Japanese people would give you like a side eye kind of, because we kind of did it to them. I don't really think I'd go in this museum, honestly, if I ever went there, just to be straight up with y'all, because it's like how in the world would the Japanese interpret that? Like we're taking like pride in the fact we leveled their cities, like with atomic bombs, or that we're sad and we should be? Like I don't really know how the dynamic would work there with that one, But beyond that, though, Hiroshima is a really nice place nowadays. Like, it had a very nice resurgence after the whole, we leveled the city in a nuclear bombing. That's what it looks like today. It looks fine, really.
Yeah, I'll be honest. For some reason in my head, like Japan's cities look better, like in my imagination, than they do in real life. Like this is also a little mildly depressing as well. It's kind of devoid of any like color in the place. Yeah, I don't know. Like Japan's not hidden the same way it used to when I was younger.
I hate to say this, folks, but dare I say it, Japan looks a little commie, like just a little, like with the architecture stuff. It's like brutalist to the point it almost looks like Eastern Europe kind of, with like the architecture.
Yeah, it's missing something. It's missing something.
Yeah, it's. What about South Korea? Like a city like Daejeon, which is kind of like similar, I suppose. What does it look like compared to Japan? Ugh.
Honestly, this looks a lot more lively right here. A lot more capitalist, as you can tell by the posters for advertisements strewn on every street corner.
Man, I don't know what's going on with Discord tonight, but Discord is messing up badly. I don't even think restarting it's going to help. But yeah, it's
Baskin Robbins. Look at that. They got a little ice cream here in the corner. Baskin Robbins.
Man, what else do they? Sadly, I can't read Korean, folks, that well. Someone said you have to go to Tokyo.
Is that the hospital?
The hospital? Where? Right down here. Yeah, that's the hospital. Let's go look at it. So, that is the hospital.
Oh, that's interesting. It's right in the middle of literally everything.
Usually they're like that,
Nah, usually they're on their own little plot. They like to put them off on the side and stuff like that so you can feel like you're out of the way. This one's right in the middle of everything. You can get a bucket of KFC while you're literally on the way to the front door at this place.
Well, I mean, there's like a lot of hospitals in the middle of downtown in Salt Lake, Like there's like loads of them. Like, let's see here. Let me see if I can find the hospital down here. Let's see. Yeah, right there. I mean, that one's in the middle of everything, it's like that one. This one's huge though. I mean, there it is. But
oh, look, see, it's on its own little plot. It's got its own little like yard and a little grass and sod and everything up front. It's got a little something like with it. It's also off on its own a little bit. I mean, they got this other ER here in the Japan situation. They have that thing literally like sandwiched in between like like the freaking like I don't know like between stuff.
Yeah. Like real shit. like real.
I was trying to come up with some examples of what it could be sitting next to, but I really couldn't think of anything it was sitting next to except for, random shops. So I just kind of just gave up.
But you know what's really interesting, speaking of this whole, like, let's look at a Japanese city, let's look at a South Korean city. What's actually kind of wild is that there's actually a lot of really nice American cities, but for some reason people never want to give them their credit. Like Salt Lake City is definitely one of those cities, not to brag, but we live here, and every once in a while you can wander down into downtown in most parts of the city, and it's really nice. And then there's also, places like Boise too, that are really nice. Like, let me bring y'all to downtown Boise and show this to y'all, because surprisingly, it's actually pretty nice looking. Like, that is actually really nice, actually.
Yeah, I've become to appreciate America over the years. Like, I really have. Like, I think when you're younger, you think other places like around the world are like, oh, like that would be so crazy to live there. But once you start really learning about it and stuff, you're like, well, it looks interesting to visit it maybe one time or two, but there's no place like home, like the United States. There's just no place like home. Now, I will say there's better places to live in America than others, certainly so. My hometown personally, I would not want to return back to it, even though I grew up there. So there's definitely good and bad places in America, but I think I'd rather take the bad places in America over going to a foreign country in most cases, unless it's something like Europe. But the problem is, though, it gets so expensive to live in places like Switzerland and places like Austria. It's just simply not feasible. So I'd rather be in America.
Well, also, like, just to be honest with everyone, I mean, usually there's always going to be, like, some level of racism or prejudice against a foreigner. Like, in Japan, you're going to be a Gaijin, and if you're in any German-speaking country, you're an Auslander, which is, like, an outlander from outside of the country, a foreigner, basically. And, there's, like, the truth of it is that, most of the time you'll never culturally, like, integrate properly enough for them to accept you, and also you're not one of their own country peoples. So, unlike the United States of America, where that doesn't really matter as much, over there that matters a great deal in most countries like that. And that's also something that kind of, boxes you in reality, because it's like, if you ever wanted to feel like you belong anywhere, in America, you belong with Americans because, all Americans get along. It doesn't matter, what race or cultural background you have, everyone's an American, so, you can get by and by pretty easy and get along with folks pretty easy as well, in casual interactions. But in other countries, for example, like if you have, like, for example, like I'm an American and I go to some place like Japan, they're going to be polite, but you're also never going to be accepted into much of anything, because they're going to like, that's like that white American dude, and that's basically how they're going to look at you. So, that, like, that's kind of a thing about it a little bit as well. It's like, once you kind of know that reality, it's like, it's kind of hard to say, oh, I'd like to pack up and go there. And also on top of that, I mean, America is not a bad place. As long as you avoid the bad places, it's a great place. Like, just like everywhere else. I mean, if you avoid Berlin and Germany, it's a pretty nice country.
It's fixable though. Like that's the thing. Like our country is in shambles, like in some of the major cities right now. Like I will admit that, but it's all fixable with the right people in charge and also the right ambition behind it. You can revive places in this country. It's not too far gone. Like it's simply not the case. But it takes willpower and also it takes people actually caring about the situation to fix it. So it's not a lost cause. But right now though, there seems to be not really a general like ambitious nature to tackle projects like that. It's more about simply just, I guess you could say just sort of running the system for what it's worth at this point, which is not really a good way to run things. But, if you get people in that actually care and you sort of like get rid of the whole, pay to play type thing going on, I think you have a much better situation.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's a whole load of nice places though in America. It's just that people don't talk about them a whole lot. Like hell, to be honest with y'all folks, Kansas City in let's see, was it the part in Missouri or was it the part? I think it was the part in Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri is actually a pretty nice place from what I remember. Let me see if I can drop y'all down on a street here. Okay, maybe this is not the greatest example. Like, maybe this isn't the greatest example. Let's just back out of that. I'll have to go and try and find the nice parts, because I remember the last time I went there, it was really nice, and I was like, wow, look at that. Kansas City, Missouri is, like, actually pretty decent. I would have never guessed. St. Louis, though, is a shithole. Like, do not go there. Like, that's pretty rough. But let's see. Let's see. Let me think. I don't know enough about Denver to actually tell you all about that when I was about to, like, pick Denver.
Nice places are shrinking. I will say that. That is one thing I will say.
You know, it's just tough at times. And you know, there's always a positive spin to everything, folks. You know, tough times create strong men, as they say. You know, and I think we're about to be getting a lot of
Or
strong men
broke
in this
ones.
country. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're broke, you got to be strong, man, because you got no way to hire a moving crew, so you got to start lifting them weights. You know, drinking them protein shakes and
Yeah.
everything.
Well, you know, that's the problem, like, in a lot of places, like, you know, like, the crime and gangs and stuff like that, like, taking over, like, urban areas, like, that's a problem right now in America, and it ruins, like, you know, downtown specifically, like, downtown's notorious for that. If you go to pretty much any downtown, like, you know, in the South, pretty bad with crime, gang activity and stuff like that. And the whole place, I mean, it drives the economy away because, I mean, who the hell wants to build a business or build some type of future in gangland? Nobody wants to do that. So everybody leaves and they go somewhere else where they feel safer. And then when you flee to a safer area where the crime's not so bad, then you end up going somewhere and you pay like 2 or 3 times what you were paying in the previous place. So then your cost of living goes through the roof when trying to go to a new place. So that's the problem in America right now. It's too much running going on. Like, people need to hunker down where they're at. I'm kind of being a hypocrite here because we kind of didn't do that ourselves. But
Bruh.
you know,
Right, you're like every political speaker out there. They're like, okay, everybody, don't drink, and then they're like an alcoholic behind the scenes or something.
listen, it's easier said than done. Damn it,
Oh,
it's
man.
easier said than done. Like, what? I'm just one person. What can I do? I'm just one person. I can't fight the gangs. I had to go.
Man, honestly though, Hokey Redneck got the experience of what we lived in our whole lives. We basically never left the South until we moved out here to Salt Lake, ever. So you know, if y'all don't know, Hokey Redneck's a viewer of the channel, and he actually went down to Tuscaloosa to the Morgan Wallen concert, and he actually got to see Alabama by train, which I think is probably one of the best ways to see it, because it just shows you the state unapologetically. Like, there is no sugarcoating at all on Amtrak's route through Alabama. It just is what Alabama really is, and you get to see it right out the window. And he was shocked. It's something else. Like, I'm like, and also Hokey Redneck, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, he's in Washington, which is actually pretty nice. Like, that area is really nice. So going out of Washington and going down into the deep South, I mean, that is shocking. Like, honestly, if I had lived in Salt Lake City the way it looks right now my whole life, and I went to Alabama, I would actually think that was not even the United States. I would think that that's some sort of like a impoverished third world nation with how bad off they economically are and how run down everything is. It's a shame, really, because there's a lot of nice things that could be said about the South. It's just that a lot of that has just evaporated since we were kids. Because back when we were kids, because I remember when we were really little, it was way better. And even back then, it wasn't the greatest thing in the United States, but it was way better back then than what it has become now. And when you go through there nowadays, it's just absolutely sad, because the South has fallen from grace so badly in every way, especially economically, it feels, that it's like going through a permanent economic depression down there, nearly, from what it feels like when you live
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah, being real though, like, outside of the gang violence and the crime and stuff like that in major cities in the South, there's also a problem, and this isn't political, by the way, but the governments in the South are like stuck in a different era. Like, they're stuck in a different time period. They're not forward thinking. Like, I think most people that I grew up with would agree with that even grew up with me in the South. The governments there, like, people joke, like in Alabama, they joke about the governor being like Meemaw, like a grandma, and she's not very forward looking, and it's irrespective of her political party. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But there's no ambition behind it or something. It's just like stuck in a different era. It's like you can't get stuff done unless you have leadership in places, you know, anywhere in the country that actually wants to get stuff done. Like, that's a big problem as well.
In Alabama, they'll literally put the tax dollars towards anything but any public institutions or services. Literally. Like, that's one thing that I find really interesting about Alabama, is that whenever they got any money from the federal government, and anytime they got around to spending their own state tax income, it would always be on stuff that would never benefit anybody. It would be like, let's build more prisons, or something along those lines. They would hardly ever pave a road while we were there. That might have changed now, but they would hardly ever pave a road. They would hardly ever do anything to improve the situation for the public, like, hey, we've done this thing to, give you all an additional civil service or this or that. Like, it's really interesting to me because there's also no push in the public down there for that either. Like, a lot of people in Alabama are just happy with having absolutely nothing as far as civil services or institutions provided by the state government. And I just find that so weird because Utah, which, like, this is something that I find really interesting because technically Alabama and Utah are in the same political party, but the thinking out here in Utah is totally different than the thinking in Alabama. Because here in Utah, one of the biggest arguments that I've seen so far in the city meetings that they have here and all of the municipalities that make up the metropolitan area are, when we build a new road, it has to have a bike lane, and also there has to be some sort of public transport access to a new development or something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's unheard of in Alabama, those two things. And sidewalks, too. Like, that's also unheard of in Alabama to ever have any of that planned.
Could you imagine them having that debate in Alabama? Oh my God! Like I can hear it right now. Like, okay, we're bringing up the point. Would you like a bike lane on the side of the road? Who the hell needs a bike lane? Get in your damn car and drive down the road. It's like that type of. It's literal. I'm not even being facetious. Like, it's that type of thinking. Like, it's almost like a hostility toward things like that. Like anything that like really like goes out of the way to improve stuff like that, it's met with hostility in a lot of cases. But it's like a survival mentality. It's not really like let's improve it and make it better. It's more like, can we simply keep the status quo and survive? It's like that type of thinking overall, which it's really disappointing because Alabama has potential. Like if they would take the state and actually do something with it and actually move it forward, it has potential. But you gotta have the people in Alabama realize there's a way forward. You don't have to just stay complacent. You can move forward. But with the government not setting the example, I mean, it's hard to do that when the government won't make stuff happen.
Yeah, it's just really it's wild, honestly, man. Because when you think about it, that's really how it go in Alabama. What kind of wuss would ride a bicycle? What an idiot! Like, it'd be something like that. Like, that would literally be like the kind of discussion that you'd have in Alabama on something like that. Like,
I'd be scared to ride a bicycle in Alabama.
oh,
like,
bro, someone try and
and
sideswipe
just
you,
in
probably.
fact, yeah, they probably would actually, because there's a lot of, I mean, hell, even when I rode a motorcycle, it was dangerous. I mean, people were trying to sideswipe me on a motorcycle, and generally that's considered manly in Alabama. So, I mean, they're generally okay with that. But riding a bicycle, my goodness, that's you're going to be in some deep trouble riding a bicycle in Alabama in a bike lane. You might have to just go ahead and write that off. That might be over with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird. And I saw someone say, well, like Salt Lake City, because like speaking about the stuff, you kind of like people always bring up the political party. Well, Salt Lake City leans to the left while the rest of the state leans to the right, so that's why they have that. But that's not true because the Utah Transit Authority, which is run by the state government, and the state government is still the same political leaning as Alabama. They lean huge into public transport. That's why we have the Front Runner train service that goes all the way from Ogden to Provo. That's why we have the Trex, and that's why we have all of the UTA bus services too that run on very frequent schedules compared to Alabama. I think the bus in Birmingham, like, it was literally one route up and down 280 to downtown and back, and like it was like a bus every hour or an hour and 30 minutes if it even showed up. And here in Salt Lake City, I think the buses show up in non-peak hours every 30 minutes and in peak hours every 15 minutes at every stop and on every route in the city. And then the Front Runner is very similar, and the Trax is really similar too, and all of that is run and operated by a state agency, the UTA. There is literally no equivalent to that in Alabama anywhere, and there never would be an equivalent to it in Alabama because public transportation is looked at as like a demon in Alabama for some reason. Like, they literally only provide the very bare minimum, which is usually a very infrequent and irregular bus service on one or two routes that basically goes nowhere in reality, and that's it, just that way they could say they hit the bare minimum check marks and then they move on from that and never talk about it again. And then
They're worried about communism creeping in.
Oh yeah, because public transport is clearly the first step to communism. Like it's like obviously like
trains are like train. I mean, trains could be argued to be a step toward communism. Like it could be, but if it's like like little trams and stuff like that could be a little bit different. But it like full scale trains, that could be one giant leap towards Stalinism.
Man, honestly. Also, I saw someone say, do the buses go to the ski resorts? Yeah, that's also the crazy thing about it, too. They have bus services that run in the peak seasons all the way up to all of the ski resorts, which is also crazy as well. And I mean, they pull out like some really nice charter buses for that are UTA run and operated. So they're not like the normal city buses. They're like the giant like charter bus types, and they just run as a part of the public transit system. It's insane, really. I mean, like, I've never seen anything like this. But anyways, with that, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that has addressed that well. Pretty long rabbit hole, but I hope you all have enjoyed it, because I think that these sorts of things that we talk about here with, like, the civil duties and the civil institutions and sorts of additions and in add-ons that Salt Lake does and Utah does, I think that's what every city in America should do. If they did that, things would be a lot better for a lot of people, and a lot of people would be a lot happier because there's a lot more provided for your tax dollar. You get way more bang for your buck that way. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Craig Jones. And thank you, Craig, for that 20. He said, I'm glad you're back. And I don't know how we are getting out of this, but someone needs to open the strait.
I agree. I would hope that someone would. At this point, I've given up on even being frustrated. I'm just looking at it as a circus at this point, because that's what it is, and just covering it day to day, because if I was frustrated about this every day, I'd end up losing all my hair next week, probably. But a huge thanks to you for the support. I definitely agree with that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Wubba, and thank you, Wubba, as well, for that support. He said, nothing to see here.
Nothing to see? Well, I guess if you say so. But big thanks to you so much for that support. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Robert Betancourt. And thank you, Robert, as well, for that support. He said, at first, Green will be at CalSTART in San Diego after a $90 billion loan, CalSTART events. And you're plugging that company a lot right there. I checked it out before. I think they make the electric Bobcats, I think that was what the company was. I'll have to check it out a second time in honor of you, Robert. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'll definitely have to check it out as well, Robert. And I got to thank you incredibly for the support and sharing that with us, because we'll definitely have to take a good look at it. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on and into the next one. But before we move into the next one, getting back...
Oh, no, he's doing it again. He's doing it. He's saying on to the next one, then he's starting a whole new thing.
I got it. Folks, do y'all have an issue with that in the chat? Do y'all have an issue with it? I don't think it's that big of an issue. Sometimes I see interesting stuff when I'm segueing there, and I'm like, oh, that'd be an interesting thing to touch on, because someone just said in the chat, that, let's see here, someone just said about Utah, about the Olympics. I was actually looking into the Olympics and how that worked for Salt Lake the last time in 2002, and it turns out, interestingly enough, that's how they did a lot to improve the city. Because by the Olympics coming to Salt Lake, they were able to argue to the federal government, the state was, that they needed to get billions and billions of dollars in federal grants and loans so they could build out all kinds of cool stuff. And believe it or not, Matthew, this is actually crazy. I didn't know this, but that was literally what created the track system basically for the whole state. Well, more so the Salt Lake area, was the federal grants that they got, because they said the Olympics are coming and we want Salt Lake City to look really great to the world, so we want to build out this really modern sort of a commuter system. Would you give us the money? And the government gave them the money as a grant, not a loan. So they just got straight up money to build the thing with.
Yeah, so you're saying they got fed money?
Yeah, they got fed money because the Olympics was coming, and they were like, we wanted to look good.
Here's a novel idea. How about, since the U.S. can print the money infinitely, and they can simply just print it, like they say that they can just print the money and it just comes out of thin air. How come they can't just print a little money out of thin air and give it to the states and give it to the cities and do the same thing everywhere in the country? How come they can't do that? How come we can't see that possibly happen? Because, I mean, we can come up with money on the spot for the $1.5 trillion military budget. We can come up with money on the spot for pretty much anything, possibly. But somehow we can't come up with money to actually improve the country. It's like, it seems like we can probably come up with some money there, here and there. I mean, they can show up at 2 o'clock in the morning in Congress to pass a mass surveillance bill. I mean, surely we can get some money to improve the country.
Folks, if I was the president, I would say that one of the most important things that I would like to tackle as part of my policies would be public amenities, because there is so many public amenities that are sorely missed in most of the country that are just not provided. As the president, I would try and see about sponsoring a bill in Congress or a special appropriations fund that could be passed in the next spending bill to see that the hundreds of billions of dollars in a single lump sum could be put in a special fund or a grant that cities could apply for throughout the country, as long as they lay out exactly what they're going to do with the money, and there is federal oversight involved in giving that money to them and having them use it for construction to be able to build out sidewalks, bike lanes, and public transportation systems that are actually world class in any city that can show that they have a good enough plan and a competent enough leadership to be able to actually follow that through with. I think that that'd be an incredibly great idea, and maybe even throw in some public parks in the mix as well, where the cities could buy some land within some residential areas and put some really bespoke parks in the middle of suburban or residential areas throughout the entirety of their cities, so that way people actually have some public places to go that are pretty and enjoyable to be at, and also a way to get around that would be cheap and efficient where they don't have to take the car every single day. I think that would be a great thing to do, honestly. I think that would be a huge way of improving people's quality of life nationwide in one easy step.
There's so many ways the government could improve the situation right now if they actually put their minds and put their effort toward it. Like, for example, everybody talks about, oh, young people can't afford houses, and it's true. Like, even right now, I'm like, me buying a house, that's a far away. And for everybody in my age bracket, it's a far away. They could simply expand, like I think they're called FHA loans. They could simply expand something like that to provide really low interest home loans, possibly to help people be able to afford homes. That it's still not going to make it easy to buy a home, but that's not the point, though. At least it would lessen the burden on people because they're paying a much lower mortgage rate. Because mortgage rates are still through the roof right now. You're paying mortgage interest, which is like car interest these days, like with the interest rates. So there's a lot of stuff they could do, but unfortunately, though, there's no incentive to fix it, because the way it works is one party that's in charge will simply say that other evil party's preventing us from doing this. Then the other party will get in power, and then they'll say, oh, that other evil party, they're preventing us from doing this. And it just goes on indefinitely, and nothing ever gets done. So, that's the problem. The two-party system, the huge scam that's been basically sold to people for ages, it doesn't work, and it's a huge scam.
It really is. I also saw someone say, well, we built parks and no one goes. Well, because they're really garbage most of the time. Like, if we go to Birmingham and we go to the park that was closest to us, let's see here. Where in the world was that one? It was down here somewhere. You know the one I'm talking about, Matthew. It was down, where in the world? It was right up here. This one called Veterans Park. Let me show what it looks like from the street. It's just a big grass field with really nothing here. That's not really a park. Like, especially in the South in 100-degree weather, with 100% humidity most times of the year, this is basically just boil and get sunburn lane right here. There's nothing about this that's really a park. And that's one thing that I think is so weird about, like, the modern American mindset with parks, is that most cities will be like, let's just get a giant empty grass lot and call that a park and pretend like it is. It's like, that's not a park. Like, that never will be a park. That's a grass field.
They did add pickleball courts to it right before we left. They added pickleball.
Yeah, but who plays pickleball that much, Like, honestly...
Oh, man, a lot of people do. It's a fad.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people are getting into it for some reason. It's like the lazy man's version of tennis.
Huh, I actually didn't know that. But honestly, though, if we call this anything, this isn't a park, this is a green. Like, this is Veterans Green. This isn't a park. Park, let me show you what a real park looks like over here in Salt Lake. Because I have to use Salt Lake as our example. Liberty Park, right here, this is a park. It's tree-covered, paved sidewalks, nice walking and running avenues, beautiful little venues. This is a park. That's what you would think of as a park. I think it also has a botanical garden and a couple of other things like an aviary as well. And that's a place that people will want to go. There's a place to walk. There's a place to run. A nice place for a picnic. A couple of little attractions like an aviary and, garden. That's stuff that people would want to actually go to a park for. Just building a green and then calling that a park is never going to attract people to go to a park. And that's why they need money to be able to do that, because anyone can just plop down a grass field and say that's a park. It's not. There has to actually be something beautiful about it and nice about it and enjoyable about it, and also some trees for shade to make it a real park that's worthwhile of going to. And a lot of the Salt Lake parks are a lot like that.
Yeah. Imagine if they built like, I will say this, not obviously China is not a role model when it comes to their government, but I have seen like that their parks are pretty nice. Like they do build pretty nice parks over there. They have it to where they have like the waterfalls and like the tree little like gardens and stuff like that over there. I think Japan has them too. Like in some areas, I've seen them over there. Now they're not super common because it takes a lot of money to build those and it's a lot of upkeep because when you build very elaborate parks, then you have to hire landscaping crews to come in all the time, and those are very expensive and it's a recurring cost. So I think that's why Alabama makes them super simple because all you have to do is pay somebody to buzz it with a lawnmower, basically like the grass. So it's super easy. You don't have to like trim bushes, trim trees, and stuff like that. They're basically cutting down their recurring costs.
Yeah, but then there's no inherent value in the park because it's just a big grass green. Nobody wants to go to it because there's nothing really to go there for. There's a lot more civil value and utility out of a park that actually has amenities and something nice about it that makes it worthwhile to go. Because you and I both know, because we've been down to Liberty Park in Salt Lake a couple of times, that it is exceptionally well trafficked. I mean, every single day this park is packed with people. All the parking lots surrounding its outskirts are just laden with cars and people who are in here having picnics, going on walks and jogs, hanging out around the lake or the aviary because there's stuff to do. Like if this thing had nothing in it and it was just a giant grass field, literally nobody would go to it because there's no reason to go to it. And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, there's a reoccurring cost in maintenance, but it pays for itself in the civil value that it would bring because of what it has and what it has to offer to the citizenry.
Yeah, I mean, it can offer a lot for the citizenry, I would say. I think the best place for people to go and also learn a little self-reliance is just go out to the wilderness and go camp out there. Like, it's the best thing. That's what I'm going to do eventually. I'm planning on doing that when, it gets warmer and stuff and the snow melts. I'm going to go and actually go out there and go experience that myself, obviously with the proper protection going out there, obviously. But that's a pretty cool thing. I think a lot of people are kind of like iffy to do that, though, because, a lot of people were like, they'd rather just watch somebody do that from like YouTube or something. But it seems like it could be a nice experience.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, camping. I've like when I used to do reenacting, I kind of did like a little bit of camping doing that, and I got to be honest with y'all, it was either so cold it was completely unenjoyable, or it was so hot it was terrible.
But you didn't even have a tent.
Well, that's what made camping really tough.
You didn't have a sleeping bag. You didn't have a tent. You didn't have a pad. You didn't have a bag. I mean, you didn't have anything.
Well, yeah,
you were literally sleeping on the dirt.
Yeah, because you had to buy some stupid like $800 canvas tent, that was like from the 18th century, or it wouldn't be accurate and all, and then it made it a whole deal. So it was just cheaper at that point because I had no money then to just sleep on the grass, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to make a small investment, I know camping gear's gotten expensive, but if you're willing to make a small investment, you can have a nice, comfortable setup. I think the kids call it glamping. I think they call it where you can have like basically like your bed in your house with you while you go camping with the certain gear. So I mean, you can make it nice, but you can't expect to go out there with no gear and have a good time. It's gonna suck. You might freeze to death in the Wasatch.
Man, and the Wasatch. Man, I love the Wasatch. The Wasatch, 1 is a cool name, and 2, the Wasatch is a sick place. Like, I love the Wasatch. It's so cool. This is a trail. I still haven't made that Patreon post, unfortunately, folks, but this is a trail that I've been going up for a minute, and that's the view from the top. That's not the view I've been getting. I've been getting a different view. Oh, look at that. This is crazy, man. This is hardly up the trail at all, but that's the parking lot I park in, and when you're up here, dude, you're basically looking straight down at the car. It's weird because you literally almost just see the roof only.
Yeah, and also, by the way, it's like you can be fine out here. Like, the only thing that's out here in the Wasatch is black bears. You got rattlesnakes occasionally. You barely see those. They're around, but you just got to keep an eye out for them. The black bears are skittish. You have a 10 mil with you. Like, you're able to protect yourself, but you won't have to do that. You can just spray it with bear spray and it'll run off for the most part. Outside of that, there's mountain lions. Those can be sketchy, but they're elusive. You barely see those things. And also the moose are really the dangerous thing. Like the moose, like especially if you hike up to the areas where lakes are at or something out here, the moose are the dangerous ones. If you spook a moose, they'll try to stomp you to death. And they're pretty common. Like you'll see those a lot more commonly than a bear or a mountain lion. Yeah, you got to watch out for those moose. Those things are serious.
Yeah, those things are awful. I mean, they're, like the worst, really, from what I've seen. Man, I like Matthew sent me a reel a while ago, folks, and it was a moose chasing down a black bear, and that black bear was literally as low as it could be to the ground, moving its legs as quickly as it could to try to avoid getting stomped by these moose, which are so huge. Like these moose are like 8 feet tall or 9 feet tall. Like it just in not standing on their hind legs, they're huge. Like I think that they like honestly, man, I don't know about this. Google this really quickly, Matthew. Do moose beat up grizzly bears and brown bears often? Because I feel like they probably do.
Let's see here. I did hear about somebody getting attacked by a mountain lion out here a while back, but it's like, it's you can take care of that if you know what to do, right? But let's see here. It says yes, a full-grown healthy bull moose, and that was that political party. He said it can absolutely beat up, injure, or possibly even maim a grizzly bear. So yeah, the moose are the ultimate. The moose are the ultimate. Why does it show a picture of a freaking hippo? What the hell? Wait a minute, hold on. Let me double check this real quick. This person posted a picture of a hippo talking about a moose. What the hell? But okay, but it does say here that it can hurt the black bear, but it's not going to do any damage to a grizzly. Like a moose is going to get jacked up by a grizzly. Well, I think anything's going to get jacked up by a grizzly. But the moose can jack up a black bear. Black bear are like the light version of a bear. If you're trying to get familiar with how to deal with bears, black bears is where it's at because they're usually skittish and they're usually not aggressive unless they have their baby bears with them. So you'll mostly be fine. But the grizzlies though and the brown bears, I wouldn't want to mess with those. I wouldn't go camp anywhere where those are at.
Man, honestly, man, the moose is almost like an apex predator. Like, really, I mean, like, most everything's in fear of a moose. Like, everything, basically. Honestly, man, bison are a lot like that, too. Like, bison are a lot more docile compared to, like, a bear. But if a bison got angry or they started to stampede, that is a very deadly sort of a situation.
Yeah. Generally, though, like for most wild animals, though, as long as you don't try to go provoke the wild animal, like it'll just ignore you for the most part, unless it's something like a mountain lion that's stalking you and it decided to get hungry and it's going to come after you or something like that. But you can take care of it with if you have to for self-defense. You can just pop the thing if it's going to try to attack and kill you or something like that. Also, apparently those things weigh about 90 to 100 pounds, so apparently people fight those things off pretty commonly. Obviously, it's not a position you want to get in, but you can try to fight the thing off if it tries to get at you.
Wait, black bears?
It's basically like a giant cat. No, I'm talking about the mountain lions.
Oh. I was about to say, I was like, a black bear only weighs 90 to 100 pounds? I was like, what?
No, those are 400 pounds. That's a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. Like, I was like, dude, I think the bears are a lot bigger than that, like, even the black bears. But yeah, like, a mountain lion's not too bad, like, it could be worse, folks. You could run into a cougar up there, and who knows what would happen.
That is a mountain lion.
Well, there was a joke in there, man. Like, there was a punchline in that. I think you just missed
it. Talking about women.
Yeah, like you run into one of them out there in the middle of the wilderness. You better run. Like you better take care of yourself. But I've actually heard, folks, that you can run into a lot of cougars around Gobbler's Knob, but that's just what I've heard on the street. Don't take it to the bank. But one thing I want to do, all jokes aside, Matthew, is I want to go to Mount Olympus. I didn't know there was a mountain called this around here. I just found this out when I was in the Mount Olympus wilderness, and I was like, what? And that's apparently it. And we see this thing all the time. But I want to go up there and
There's
see.
A lake up there.
There is?
Somewhere up there.
I don't think it's on Mount Olympus or near it. I think it's like way over here. Actually, I don't think there's one over here at all. I think you're talking about Lake Blanche, which is near the Twin Peaks.
Could be possible. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, right here, Lake Blanche. Yeah, that's near the Twin Peaks, which are over here.
You can generally see moose there at Lake Blanche all the time. Like, apparently they go up to drink the water in the morning. So you're pretty much guaranteed to see them if you camp there.
Man, honestly, I don't know how I feel about that. That kind of be scary. Like,
they're not going to come up to you, though. I mean, also, you can't camp right next to the water. You got to be 200 feet away from it. So the moose aren't going to be anywhere near you.
A couple of lakes that'd be cool to go to would be like Lake Mary. Like that one's a pretty easy one to get to from what I've heard. Like it's literally just like a several hundred feet incline and about a mile or so in, and then you make it straight to it. That would be cool to go see. Let me see if I can show you what this looks like. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That'd be a cool one to go see. That one would be easy to get to too. But it's all snowed up, snowed in up there right now still, like very much so. It's extremely snowy up there. Even at Lake Blanche, I think I read on all trails that's covered in like a foot of snow or more right now up there around that area. So definitely not something I'd want to do because I generally dress for warm weather when I go hiking and I don't want to walk up in some snow-covered area that's like 30 degrees and generally miserable at that point. That wouldn't be fun to me. So I'm waiting for the summer to do that.
Yeah, you can't really do it right now anyway. There's an avalanche risk. So if you go up there right now and you don't know what you're doing, you can get stuck in an avalanche and then there's no way to catch you or find you or anything like that.
Man, how do you think avalanches work? Like you're walking up there and then like the side of the mountain grows a face where the snow is loose and it goes, "Hello, what kind of cleats are you wearing?" And you go, I'm not wearing any. Too bad. And then like the avalanche comes down and kills you. It's like
Man,
I think it should be
avalanches are
fun.
scary. No, avalanches are scary. Like if you get caught in one of those and it's deep enough where you get buried, you're unless you have a beacon and you have somebody that's nearby to dig you out, you're pretty much finished.
Honestly, man, I'm built different. I just eat my way out of it. You know, it's like a snow cone basically, like a really big one.
Good luck moving your arms. You won't be able to move any limb.
I don't need to move limbs. It's all snow. There's no trees in there. I really got him with that one. Like, oh man, I would like to go up here and see this mine. That's pretty cool.
A mine, yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to get to that Mule Hollow mine, but that one's like too difficult to get to. I'm pretty much giving up on that one. But that one's cool because you can actually see the old mine tracks, like for like the mine carts and stuff up there. But sadly, folks, this trail is like basically not kept up at all. And no matter how many times I want to try and do this one, I can't do it. So then I went a mile up the road to one that's way easier, which is this one, which is basically the same elevation over the very same distance. It's basically an identical trail. It's just that it doesn't have a mine at the end of it. And that one's been a lot more fun because it's easier to do and the trail's actually kept up. But the Mule Hollow one's impossible. Like, I don't know how people make it up that thing and back down because you would have
So
to.
that mine route's like Rattlesnake Central. That place looks like it's a rattlesnake hellhole, like with the way it looks going up there. Like if anywhere looked like that in the south, like like the leaves everywhere and stuff like that, I wouldn't go anywhere near it because there was always snakes or something like that. There was always snakes everywhere, and you can't see them. Like especially when there's leaves all over the ground. Because obviously the snakes are camouflaged. They blend in with the leaves, and by the time you find out you're on it, you're already stepping on it.
Let's see here. Let's see, 7. So snakes are the most active during dawn and dusk in the summer, and they hibernate during the winter. So as long as you're not out at like sun up or sundown, you shouldn't really run into any snakes.
Yeah, but I mean, if you run across one of those rattlesnakes, I've seen some of them not even rattling, like on some recent videos. I don't want to deal with snakes. Like everything I can possibly deal with, I don't want to deal with the snakes because, if you get bitten by one of those, it's like it's hard to like pop a snake. Like, if it's messing with you or something like that, it's already bitten you by the time you found out it was there. So I just don't deal with snakes. I can pretty much handle anything but the snakes.
Let's see.
And the snakes aren't at high altitude, so that's my cue. I'm like, you go higher to get away from the snakes. I don't want to deal with them.
Let's see. So, yeah, apparently, so the city of Draper actually has an entire thing about the snake. Man, that thing looks evil.
Yeah, look at it, pit viper.
Jeez, dude. But they said, let's see here. All snake, let's see, regulate their body by basking in the sun or retreating to cool shade, hibernate during the winter, under rocks and in burrows. They're mostly active at dawn and dusk.
It looks pissed off.
Yeah, those things always just look angry. Like, there's never a time that they look, like, neutral in their expressions. Like, they're born to look angry. Well, let's see. This is all the stuff we learned in Alabama. Angular head like an arrow, it's venomous. Non-angular head, non-venomous. These things got a hog snout. These things don't. You learn all that in Alabama. So, let's see. Wait a minute. Under Utah law, killing of snakes and all other reptiles is prohibited. So you can't even, like...
Indiscriminate.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if you just accidentally, like, stepped on a lizard, like, are you gonna get, like, arrested for that?
No, because you didn't intend to do that. I mean, saying it's saying indiscriminate, like you're just going around like wiping out reptiles or something like that. Like it's talking about people doing stuff like that's not talking about like you just somebody accidentally like kicked a like a lizard or something.
Let's see. Snakes in your home.
That's some mean looking bastards right there. I can't stand
I
snakes. I really
know.
just cannot stand them right there. I didn't put up with those in Alabama.
They said something about somewhere around here. Let's see. Snakes are very important. Yeah. Snakes are very important. That is true. Um, let's see. Damn, like that, like somewhere at the beginning when I clicked on this, the reason why I clicked on this is because it said, oh yeah, here we go. Although most encounters with snakes in Utah are not dangerous, and rattlesnakes in particular are rarely aggressive, it is important to learn how to keep yourself, your family, and your pets safe. Never try to poke, handle, corner, or harass a snake. Well,
Bruh.
that's obvious. Like, ought to not do that. Be aware of your surroundings. Look carefully where you place your hands and feet, especially in the summer. Be alert when living in snake country. Snakes hide well. That's one thing you learn very well in Alabama. Wear closed-toed shoes, preferably high boots when hiking. See, man, that's why I can't be wearing those Lone Peak 9s. I need the boots. Like, I really do. Let's
Those
see.
big fangs on those rattlesnakes go straight through that boot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like generally snakes are like fashion police. They're gonna be like, "Hey, he's got on a tennis shoe. F that guy." Like they like get me, and then they go, "Oh, boots, pretty decent," and then they'll let me go. But let's see. Stay on paths in cleared areas. Okay, so that's a safe spot to be, paths in cleared areas. So the hiking trails. Do not gather firewood at night. Duh.
Oh hell yeah, man! These are common sense rules right here. Like also by the way, like you kind of learn from experience. Like I remember, like you would learn quickly. Do not go to like a pile of like timber or something like that.
Or
Always a
rocks.
snake in there. Always a snake. Like if you would have like a pile of timber sitting next to something in Alabama, you are pretty much guaranteed. You lift up a log, there's gonna be a copperhead sitting right under the thing. It's gonna be waiting for you the whole time. I had a lot of run-ins with snakes. I kicked a copperhead by accident one time. Thankfully it didn't bite. It must have been a chill one. And also, I don't think I had a chance to. I was out of there quick once I saw it. But I've had a lot of run-in with snakes, like really close calls. I've never been bitten by one. But I've seen the dogs getting bitten by them. And once the dog got bitten, it was over with the whole snake thing. Once the dog got bit, I remember we had a husky that got bit all the time by snakes, like constantly, and it survived everything. It got bit by a rattlesnake, copperhead, cottonmouth. It survived everything, and it kept going after snakes. Like, it was dumb.
Man, a lot of these rules also, man, are like just use a floor tent with a zipper when camping. It's like, duh. I mean, like, do you have to tell people? Like, anyways, look carefully before sitting on the ground, rocks and logs, so that way you don't sit your fat ass down on a snake. Like, bro, like, man, that's like, you would think that people would just do this stuff naturally. Supervise pets when outside and leash dogs while recreating. When you're not recreating, though, and you're just, like, moping, you can let them loose. If you hear a
Thanks
snake's...
for creating.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of saying, engaging in recreational activities or something like that. If you hear a snake's rattle, don't jump or panic. Try to locate where the sound is coming from before trying to move. When the source of the sound is identified, back away slowly and make sure you have a clear space. That one honestly isn't a no-brainer because usually most people's reaction would be to freak out, and honestly mine would be too. Let's see, if you encounter a venomous snake away from human developments, leave it alone. It is in its natural environment. Well, isn't that kind of just a repeat of the first rule of don't poke, handle, corner, or harass a snake? I mean, isn't that kind of... If you were unsure if a snake is venomous, do not try to pick it up. But once again, go make to the
They don't
first
pick up any
rule.
snake.
Like, never try to poke, handle, or corner a snake, teach children to leave snakes alone. That is a very good thing to teach kids. Purchase a snake bit kit to take with you when camping or
I was
hiking.
told, wait a minute. I was told that was, like those kits are useless. Like I was told by people in the know that those kits are useless, and they've generally proven that it's better just to not mess with the wound. Like for the most part, like I'm not so sure about that. Like I know there's kits out there that are supposed to help with that, but I just heard the best thing you can do is simply write the time you got bit next to the bite with like a Sharpie or something, so that the doctor knows how long the venom has been in your system, and take a picture of the snake. Like that's the part that I've heard you need to do. Like certainly. So, and also call ahead to the hospital and check around, make sure they got the antivenom that you need to get injected with for the most part.
Man, let's see. Well, they actually do give some first aid tips for dealing with a bite. If bitten, treat the bite as if it were venomous. Seek medical treatment immediately. If pets are bitten, seek veterinary treatment. treat for shock and temperature extremes, remove tight clothing or jewelry from the bite area, keep the affected area below the level of the heart, get a description of the snake if possible. Do not try to cut and suck the venom from the wound. I don't know who in the world even thinks that stuff works anymore. I don't know who thought that ever did. But do not apply.
Well, hell, they just told you to get a bite kit. They're out there earlier. They say get a bite kit. Then they say down here, don't try to like suck out the venom. It's like, well, I thought that's what the bite kit was for.
Let's see. Snake bite kit. This is a very interesting rabbit hole. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. Primarily focus on immobilizing the limb and managing the wound. Let's see. And experts generally advise against using suction or incision tools. So generally, just leave the bite alone. Like leave the bite alone and try and get to a hospital as soon as possible. And then never use a tourniquet.
No, oh, hell no. Why would you use a tourniquet?
I want to lose this whole leg.
Yeah, it's like, that's for losing blood, not contaminated blood with venom in it. It's like, you don't put a tourniquet on that. It's like, also, by the way, you don't want, a tourniquet is you're going to be yelling worse than you did when the snake bit you with a tourniquet. That hurts like hell.
Man, dude, the snake's going to be over in the corner watching you, like, tied to the tourniquet, and you're going, ah! And then you're just going to hear it go, relax, dude. I was just, like, scared, man. Like, you don't have to do that. Like,
I'm like this. Instead of putting the tourniquet on me, that snake's about to get the tourniquet.
Man, you're going to be wringing out his neck, bro. Like, you damn snake, bro.
Man, sitting there with a tourniquet, the snake going, like, come here, you bastard.
Man, it's going to be like Bart Simpson. Like, bro, like when he's going to get choked, bro. Like, that's going to be the snake. Oh, man. But honestly, like, the snakes don't scare me too much. In Alabama, you got, like, in Alabama, there were basically, like, no rattlesnakes, so they were all, like, copperheads and stuff, so they were as dangerous, but there was no way to know if they were nearby until you saw them. So at least the rattlesnakes give you a warning for the larger part, if they do. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Cerebros 3. And thank you very much, Cerebros, for the, I think, the second or third support of the night. And they said, while I'm not a fan after living in Dallas, Texas, numbers-wise, Austin actually did an awesome job on infrastructure to handle housing costs.
That's really interesting. And I have to say, like, I've heard some decent things about Austin, Texas. I think that's also where, like, all the podcasters are moving these days, if I'm not mistaken. But it really...
They already live there.
Oh yeah, that's true. They all do live there, basically. But a pretty interesting thing all around with that whole deal with Austin. I'll generally say, after having flown into Dallas Fort Worth a couple of times, I'm not really the biggest fan anymore of Dallas, especially their airport and that stupid little tram thing that they have that runs around the airport that flings you around every corner at 90 miles an hour. But outside of that, though, I've always heard good things about Austin, Texas. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, someone said, I wonder why. A part of it's because Texas has no state income tax. That's probably part of it, I'd imagine. But then they make up for it in property taxes, though. That's where they get you. People don't know that. But if you go there, it's like if you want to buy a house, you're going to be paying crazy property taxes because they make up for it that way by not having a state income tax. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Chris Feilbach, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Chris, for that support once again. Hey! He said, I wouldn't have known the rule against grabbing firewood at night to protect from danger noodles. Just saying. Also, yeah, you don't want to grab anywhere near firewood or any type of sticks or anything like that. Even during the day, you got to be very careful doing that because snakes love to hide in places like that because it gives them somewhere to like crawl through and go sneak away from everybody. So it's very dangerous, like grabbing anywhere near firewood. Like if you do that, the best way to do it is like grab a rake or something like that and pull the firewood out, or like try to do it that way. Because if you go reaching in there and there's a snake, your hand's getting popped. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I generally, I think we're reacting to that because we're from the South and we basically lived in the woods most of our lives. So, you know, you kind of just knew that stuff as like a given. But, you know, a lot of people probably don't. Maybe that's why they have those sorts of things. But for folks in the South, a lot of those rules are like, well, duh, because, you know, like you grow up hearing all that stuff. Like they literally teach that stuff in school, actually. Like they take a minute when you're in elementary school to be like, okay, everybody, this is a snake. They like, remember that, Matthew? They would like gather us all in like the gym and they would have like the person from the zoo and they'd show off the snakes and like, and they'd be like, these are dangerous and all. So like you learn all of that stuff in the South literally in school, and then you also just learn it from experience, hopefully not getting bit in the process like we did. But yeah, I guess it is not a no-brainer for everyone. It's just a no-brainer for us because we kind of grew up in that sort of a world where snakes were literally around every corner and under every single piece of wood. But a big thanks to you so much for the incredible support, Chris, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have an $11 support from Aquatico, and thank you very much, Aquatico, for that $11 support. They said, more Maine history. The northern part of Maine caused a Cold War between Great Britain and the USA, termed the Aroostook War. Both countries believed they owned more land until a treaty was signed.
And I believe that would be the, let's see, let me go pull up the actual name of it, because it's the Webster-Ashburton Treaty of 1842, which actually ceded the northern part of Maine that we have today to the United States. So this was the agreement right here. You can see that that was the agreement signed by John Tyler, who was the president at the time, and it gave us that area in green, south, that became a part of Maine, and then the area north of that became a part of the Dominion of Canada. And that's a really interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about. A lot of people don't know about the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, and a lot of people also don't know really a lot about how the territory of the United States was developed, because it was actually the Pig War of 1848 that actually clearly defined what the Northwest Territory, not the Northwest Territory, I forgot what it was. It was like the Cascade Territory or something like that out here. Which part was American and which part was British, and that's also what defined, I believe, the Webster. It wasn't the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, but it was one around that similar time in the 1840s that defined, I think, that the 48th parallel in a perfectly straight line is what divides the Dominion of Canada from the United States, except for this one spot here, and I forgot why that was an exception. But that's why we have the Angle Inlet for some reason. I don't know what the agreement was with that one, but really interesting stuff with those border treaties that we had. And then a lot of people, this is one thing I find so funny, because a lot of people always talk about, oh, America stole the land from Mexico, and and then some people are like, no, we bought it. It's like, it's kind of mixed. Like, technically, if you want to say we stole it, we kind of conquered it, but we stole it from the Mexicans in the Mexican-American War of 1848. But then we bought this tiny little piece of southern New Mexico and Arizona, which includes Tucson, in the Gadsden Purchase of 1858, which got us that little bit of territory. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you for supporting up with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have here a super chat from Cerebrus3 once again, who throws in a 10. And thank you very much, Cerebrus, once again. They said, I'm wondering if China will make use of the oil issue to focus on green energy deals with other countries for gain.
They might. Whenever there's an opportunity, enemy country is always going to try and pounce on it. Really, any smart country would. So they'll probably try and start moving down that avenue, most likely. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
That part right there, people underestimate a lot. Like China is a country that's willing to long-term plan, and they will wait. Like they will literally, they are extremely patient with how long they wait to implement their long-term plans, which is something currently the United States is doing pretty much none of. Like there's no long-term planning going on right now in the United States, which is very concerning, because countries like China will do stuff like right now, and they'll be doing it so that way it takes effect like 5 years into the future. And the U.S. on the other hand is very reactionary. They do stuff like off the cuff, and they do stuff like in the moment, which countries like China will end up beating us out if we don't get smart and start doing the same thing ourselves. So that's a bit of a problem there, at least in the modern day. But our next one here goes to Cachulian343, who puts in a 10 and said, it's not just the war either. AI taking away jobs, minimum wage hasn't been raised in years, inflation is through the roof, and there are barely any jobs, and this is a recipe for economic collapse.
It's definitely a recipe for tough times, that's for sure. I would agree with that. And I find it so crazy, folks. I've been hearing a lot from the current the current group that's kind of in vogue right now in the government, in the White House and Congress and all, that people just aren't making enough to get by. But then when you ask them if they want to raise the minimum wage, they say no. Why don't they work harder or get a better job? It's like, it's a little bit silly to me, because the minimum wage was always raised several years at a time, and now it hasn't been raised for decades, basically.
Yeah, but who actually gets paid minimum wage anymore? Like, minimum wage is the law in the books, but I mean, I don't really know anybody like working any job that actually gets paid 7.25 an hour. Like, it's not even really adhered to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true, but at the same time, though, it's like, you didn't hear anyone making that argument back in the day when, coal miners were working for a quarter a day, and they were like, well, the minimum wage is technically 10 cents, but, we shouldn't raise it because everyone's already making a quarter. It's like, it should just be raising to make sure that there are not any jobs out there that might be at 7.25 that people end up having to work because those are the only ones that are left.
I think the better solution is to try to get the cost of everything down instead of trying to chase the skyrocketing prices of cost of living. Then they should simply try to work on actually addressing the real problem, which is why everything's getting so expensive, instead of trying to chase it with the wages. Because once you chase it with the wages, then the cost of living starts going back up again. So you're basically like a dog chasing its tail at that point. Not saying the minimum wage shouldn't be increased, just simply saying you can't rely completely on that and neglect the other, the cost of living situation, because it's going to be a dog chasing its tail.
Well, yeah, but it's always a dog chasing its tail. It always has been. You raise the minimum wage and the prices rise, and the minimum wage goes up again. That's just basic economics over history. I mean, the value of things is always increasing, and then the wages that have to be made to meet those prices always has to increase with it. That's been a historical standard.
That's true, but I don't think you necessarily have to raise the minimum wage to enforce that because I mean, right now, if you go look at any job, like for example, working, I don't know what McDonald's is paying these days, but I mean, most people take McDonald's and go, oh, it's McDonald's, but it's like it's a job. So I think they're paying like $15 an hour or something like that. So that's more than double the minimum wage. For the most part, so nobody's paying 7.25. Like it's just not a thing. The minimum wage thing is really just a law in the books at this point, but nobody really adheres to it.
Honestly, there needs to be a lot of changes to the laws in this country about how employment is working these days. Like there needs to be a law in the book that heavily discourages part-time employment in every single industry, because that's one way that a lot of companies are trying to get around having to provide benefits that are mandated by a law. Due to certain requirements in some states, if you're a full-time employee, is by only hiring part-time workers, which ensures that they're able to, make sure to not have to pay out all of those additional benefits because hardly anyone's ever working full-time for them. And I think that needs to be worked around as well, because a lot of the additional stressors that a citizen undergoes because they have to work those part-time jobs could be dealt with if they were able to get a full-time job instead. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, but Enforcer, the part-time jobs are for like the high school kids. But there's not that many high school kids working these days compared to the number of part-time jobs. I mean, there's a lot of full-grown adults that are not high school kids that are having to work like 4 part-time jobs to make up a 40-hour week. And then they also get no benefits on top of that. And then they're also having to work 60-hour weeks at that point to try and pay for basic things like health insurance and whatnot that generally would be provided by the company they're working for if they were a full-time employee. So like,
it's insane, really, if you think about it. If you do the math, like if you're making actually 7.25 an hour, which is the actual federal minimum wage, and you work 60 hours a week, which I would say that's pretty moderate. That's on the higher end right there. 60 hours a week, you're making 7.25 an hour. That's 17.40 a month before taxes. I mean, that's not even close to covering rent. I mean, that's for most people in most places. Once taxes get taken out of that, that's just enough to pay for rent. But then you're going to starve. You're not going to have a car. You're not going to have any money to do anything. You're going to be just paying rent and with nothing else. You're hopeless at that point, making 7.25 an hour. That's why nobody's paying it.
I mean, honestly, when you think about that, man, that is abysmal. Like $1,700 a month. Who the hell could survive on $1,700 a month these days with the cost of everything?
Also, Sammy 243 said 60 hours a week. Where's your life? Well, I mean, we work 60 plus hours a week. We have no life.
Yeah.
So it's true. You don't have a life when you work so much a week. Like you can make a decision in life. You can either try to have a life where you try to balance work and life, which is getting harder to do because, these days with a lack of jobs being around and also low pay, generally speaking, the pay's not keeping up with cost of living because it's moving too fast. The cost of living is rising too fast to change with the cost of living or the wages. So, I mean, these days, I mean, I'm not sure if there really is such a thing as balancing work and life anymore. I'm not sure if that is.
Yeah, I mean, we hardly ever get to. I mean, the idea of a vacation, it's foreign to us because also on top of that, with how our job is structured, if we try and take a vacation like most normal folks would, like one every year or one every half year, and we were like gone for a week, YouTube would obliterate us algorithmically if we tried to do that normally. Like, we would not have a YouTube channel to come back to most of the time if we tried to do that like 2 times a year. We can do it like once a year, and there's been times like when we moved out here to Utah and a whole bunch of other things where we would take off like a week at a time from running basically anything on the channel. We'd come back and everything would be fine. But, at the same time, it also runs the risk that, we might get nuked in an algorithm. So with that, we are on to the next one.
Our next one goes to Duncan VR, who puts in a 12. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that $12 support. He said, Bob Move Crack. I got the cards. I got the cards. Sir, Zelensky's eating KFC. It's finger licking good. Chicken, baba.
I gotta tell you, one crazy sort of a thing right there. I thank you so much for the support and having this channel to keep running, Duncan VR. If it wasn't for folks like you, I wouldn't be able to pull my 6-dimensional chess moves of screwing over the economy. It's a great thing. Everyone always wanted it. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Nathan Meeks, and thank you very much, Nathan, for that support. He said, I've been watching you guys for a while now, and I enjoy both your perspective, and thank you for that. He said, glad to support. Now, my question is, will Venezuela's oil supplement the restricted access to the strait and things?
Unfortunately, no. But I do thank you incredibly for that support. But to answer why, Venezuela just does not produce the volume that the Middle East produces. The Middle East produces daily about 19 times what Venezuela produces every day. I think it's even more than that. But generally, just because of how small Venezuela's oil production is, they cannot supplant the Middle East in its pertinence and importance to the global supply chain. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you for the kind words and the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Cerebrus3 once again. And thank you very much, Cerebrus, for all those supports tonight. And we do appreciate that. He said, on the minimum wage, we have largely moved from a manufacturing economy to a service and consumer economy. And issues is not necessarily wage, but inflation continually rising with lack of decent entry-level avenues as a basic summary. And that's very much correct.
Yeah.
That's very correct. Entry-level positions have been demolished, which is very horrifying to us young people, because if you're a young person and you're starting out, like for example, fresh out of college, even fresh out of graduate school these days, in most cases, you're looking for one of those entry-level jobs, and then you see on the requirements, you see you need 5 years of experience to get this entry-level job. It's like what? It's like what? It's like, then this is not an entry-level job. If it requires 5 years of experience, that's not entry-level. Entry-level means you're just starting. You're entering the industry. That's what that means. And then AI is not doing any favors. AI is literally replacing those entry-level jobs, which are pretty manual jobs and very menial for the most part. It's being replaced by AI, and most of that stuff's being automated. So they're pretty much getting rid of the ladder. They're basically pulling the ladder up, and they're not letting anybody else get in those industries, which is going to bite everybody in the ass, by the way. Because if you don't have people trained in those industries that are going to need people in the future, and they're not able to start, then the industries are going to vanish eventually. But unfortunately, what say you?
Yeah, that's definitely the case at this point, and that was a very, very succinct and accurate way to describe that, actually, Cerebrus. And I thank you incredibly for that support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Raphael Philippe. He said, couldn't some experienced guys with javelins in the deck of the commercial ship simply take care of those fast attack boats?
Yeah, actually they could, but you would have to try and get them the proper licensing and all that as their mercenary groups to be able to try and have them equipped with javelins, and then also that'd be pretty expensive because a javelin isn't cheap per shot. I think a javelin missile is about $300,000. So it'd be $300,000 per boat. So a little bit of a difficult one there for a company like a shipping company to swallow per shot on that, and then also the Iranians could still up the ante and just fire an anti-ship missile or an anti-ship drone at the vessel, and then that largely defeats the defensive elements of the javelin or the benefit behind it, because you still end up getting the ship hit and you have to abandon ship anyways and lose the vessel, or end up having it captured by the Iranians. So it's basically a lose-lose still either way. It's just that they're now out several $100,000 per shot of the javelin. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Star. He said, I'm back again. I'm here to disprove the fake news. Once again, that fake news. They come out here and they say all these lies. The lies they'll tell about me now. The strait is open, they say. Any reports of the fake Iranian attack are lies and frankly treasonous. That's what they call it, treason. That's it's a serious thing. That's actually a crime. That's what they call criminal treason. That's what they call it. But anyways, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say a big thanks to you for the support. It's always good to hear from you. We love to hear from you. It's a great, wonderful thing. Huge, honestly. And I got to thank you greatly for the support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And I got to thank you greatly for that. Massively, actually. And so I hope that this addressed that well, at the best I can, at least. And with that, also, I saw Matthew address some in the chat. I got to address it. Matthew responded to Coldit's art, who said, you could go on vacation alone or together. Matthew said, I can't because I'm mobile. Andrew can't. It's always funny to me how that works, though, because Matthew, whenever he travels, he does have a mobile setup, technically, but he's at the mercy of whatever the internet quality is wherever he is. And I feel like 7 times out of 10, the internet there does not work. And so it ends up being a remote, non-verbal job, just doing all the managing of the stream. And that really wouldn't work for me because, you know, if my connection's bad, the stream goes down. If Matthew's connection's bad, he just doesn't get to talk on air. But if my connection's bad, the whole thing goes down. And on top of that, my whole life is basically structured around this thing when we're running it, and there would really be no vacation to enjoy because I have to drink a whole lot of coffee before the show. It keeps me up for hours after the show every night, so I wake up way late in the day. That gives me a couple of hours to be able to do something before I have to get to work again during the daylight hours when everything's open. It just doesn't work. Like, if I want to take a vacation, I just have to stop running shows and just go actually take the vacation, because otherwise everything doesn't work. The internet doesn't work, the timing doesn't work, the schedule of the days that I'm on vacation doesn't work because I don't even get to take the vacation. I've just added a whole bunch of burden to try and do the same job I'm doing here and basically do nothing else. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, they say there's a little thing, it's a beautiful thing called Starlink that I don't know if it would work for him, but it might work for me. I could technically, I could go out in the woods. I could go out in the beautiful woods. You know, we have the most beautiful woods. It's a beautiful forest. They have bears in there. There's big bears. They say the type that you don't want to mess with those. You don't want to mess with them. There's grizzlies. You gotta look out. They call them grizzlies because they're real grizzly. They don't like people. They're really antisocial. Kind of like some people out there, like the fake news media, kind of antisocial. But it's a strange thing. I can go out in the woods and I can hook up a Starlink and I could stream from a tent. I could be practically homeless. I could be homeless. We all could be, technically. If this keeps up in the strait, we could be all homeless. It's a beautiful thing. The way that everybody can be homeless. Crazy.
But not me. I'm going to pick another guy from Palm Beach to run the Navy. Like, gotta pick him from Palm Beach. They gotta be from there. He doesn't know a lot about the Navy, but he did grow up near the sea in a giant, multi-million mansion, I'm assuming. Multi-million dollars. Wonderful mansion. But anyways.
It's a beautiful fish. They call those beautiful fish. They call them Rolls Royce fish. They call them Ferrari fish. Those beautiful fish. They roll down the streets. They're not in the water, but they're basically dripping, those fish, those Rolls Royce fish.
He doesn't really know a lot about the Navy, but he sure does love rainbow trout, and that kind of counts. So that kind of qualifies him. It's a fish. I mean, it is.
They call him a bit of a seaman. He's been at the sailor situation. He said he used to pilot a Nautilus, but he was talking about a watch.
Get Palm Beach Pete up here. We're going to make him the Secretary of the Navy. Oh, man. You know what's sad is that might actually, be a reality someday. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, moving on to our next one here. This one's going to go to none other than Pacific Fruit Express, who said, we simply have to get closer and establish dominance.
I agree completely with that. And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Ross Nib, all the way from down under. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And he said, they say, sir, we're going to war, sir. Going into elections. You got to love elections, those beautiful elections. Going into surgery. Where are we going, sir? I say, we're going to go give Xi Jinping a fat hug, a fat one. That's where we're going.
I gotta tell you that August Xi Jinping may not be good for your health. He may try and pull that One Belt, One Road program on your ass. Wait a minute, is that a dead bear? No, Mr. Secretary, no! Like, no, don't touch the bear! Beyond that, I do thank you incredibly for the support, Ross, and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Cerebrus3 once again, who said a special live stream, 2-day vacation, snake wrestling using Starlink.
It could happen. I mean, it could. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could. You know, I like to go out in the wilderness. I like to find myself a bald eagle, and I would like to look at its wings, you know, and figure out how it flies. Maybe I can build myself some wings out of wax and escape from this ivory tower that I've been stuck in my whole life, being a Kennedy and everything. That would be kind of neat. What do you think, man? Do you think that'd be a good idea or not?
You know, they call the eagle bald eagle. They call him that because they stay fresh. They go get buzz cuts from the local barber shop. That's why we made them the national bird, because they stay fresh like us.
I gotta tell you all, one time I went out on the trail and I had to take a dump. I sat there and used a cricket as toilet paper. It was really something else. I found out that crickets aren't usable as toilet paper, but, you know, you had to try and find out, you know. But anyways, oh, man.
I like it when he gets mad. I like it when he gets mad because it starts getting so incoherent. It starts getting some anger mixed in with contempt possibly. It starts getting really rough.
Man, I haven't heard that myself. I'll have to look into that and see if I can find a clip of it. But anyways, for that, we're on to the next one.
And now we have a $10 support from let me scroll up here. This one goes to none other than Pacific Fruit Express once again, who said, "You guys are the best. Thank you." He said, right when I'm convinced everyone has gone mad, I hear your points of view. Solid info as well.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and the kind words. Your support is actually helping us to have a level-headed approach here on air, and I really love to know that a lot of people think that we still have a level-headed approach. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, we have a 10 from Craig Jones. He said, "Mr. President, get help from Zelensky. It's the smartest move we have."
I have to say that we would be more than happy to help. But, I mean, you know, it would be a smart thing, but I have a feeling that the president more so works on emotions rather than facts. Sadly, a lot like, I remember back in the day, folks, in the mid-2010s, there was this guy, his name was Shapiro, and he came up with this really famous saying. He said, "Facts don't care about your feelings." And I feel like that was thrown out of the window the next 2 years after that, because they've never really said that again. And nobody has, because now feelings care more than facts to everybody on both political ends. And it's I just feel like at this point, there's really no difference between both political groups because they're all emotionally driven and not at all fact driven or pragmatically focused on what they're trying to achieve and whether it's working or not. But I do thank you for supporting this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I also have a 10 from Alexander Minchev, and thank you very much, Alexander, for that support. He said, "Rock on, my dudes. I've been listening to you since the Moscow got promoted to a sub. Sadly, Bulgaria don't allow me to listen live. EU-US defense tech and supplies break is unavoidable anymore. And what say you?"
I would have to say it might be unavoidable, unfortunately, at this point. And I also got to say a huge thanks to you for the support and watching here at this time of night in Europa. And we're always happy to have folks from Europa watching the show. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have another 13 Australian from Duncan VR, and thank you, Duncan, for that support. He said, "Quack. Sir, it's fake news, Mr. Secretary, Health Ministers. Should we all be eating KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken? What say the marmot?"
I'd have to tell you that you could shove all the fried chicken you want down your throat, but it's got to be cooked up with tallow, because nothing ever says healthy like eating the most unhealthy kind of fruits that you can imagine, but eating it with a whole bunch of pig fat on it. It's really something else. What is that?
Yeah, that's why we love Bobby. That's why we love him. He never says no. He doesn't know the word no. He just says yes, yes, man. That's what we call him.
I injected my kids with brine solution when they were growing up because the Costco chickens are like that and they're real good. No, I'm not gonna. Anyway, let me go get the marmot really quickly. We got to get the marmot up here. We're having a blast today. You know, the marmot deserves to come out for a moment. Let's go get Alan. Oh, look at that! Hey!
Oh man, this is getting crazy. Now we're branding the marmot too. People are gonna think we're bonkers.
I gotta tell you, it's the Secretary of the Fly. I've gotta be honest with y'all, getting deep up in that marmot tail is something really healthy for you. You gotta make sure to really savor the flavor and really take in the smell. It smells like straight ass, and it's very healthy for you. You know, I can do 30 pull-ups.
Excuse me. Let me finish. Are we looking at a painting or are we looking at the menu?
You're looking at a painting, damn it.
Man, that looks like a menu.
I'll take the roast marmot and I'll leave it dead in Central Park and drop it off out there. It'll really work out well for them all. You know, really get a good headliner in the news. Oh, man, I gotta tell you, that voice is something else. But beyond that, though, Matthew, would you like to do a little marmot segment for the audience?
I think my voice is hurting right now. I'm not sure if I could do Alan right now. I think my voice might not do it justice.
Listen here, you're a Kennedy, damn it. Do your job. But anyways, it is time for us, unfortunately, to move on to the next one. But a huge thanks to you for support, Duncan VR, and helping this channel to keep on rolling.
All right, so our next one is going to go to none other than Eastside Barbell, and thank you very much for the support. He said, how would storming Norman strategy be implemented in the Strait based on the past in Desert Storm?
Oh, that's a great question. I wouldn't know. Because Schwarzkopf's primary concern actually wasn't a war with Iran. That was a bit of his focus during the 80s when the Iraq-Iran war was going on. But generally, he actually was the guy who pioneered the very war plan that we used in the Gulf War, which was a hypothetical scenario to where the Iran war ended in an Iraqi semi-victory in a way, but due to their bankruptcy and their heavy debtors' obligations to surrounding countries like Kuwait, Iraq would illegally invade Kuwait, and then the United States would have to liberate Kuwait from the illegal Iraqi invasion. He was the guy who came up with that war plan specifically, which is exactly what happened. It was like basically prophetic what he planned out in the hypothetical scenario that he came up with, and we basically used his war plan to a T. Unfortunately, he didn't really come up with a lot directly on the Strait of Hormuz. And sadly, while Schwarzkopf was a genius in his day and time, warfare has evolved to the point that a lot of Schwarzkopf's planning, while absolutely genius and sublime, and I would say some of the best of the 20th century, outside the Second World War and the First World War, that is, unfortunately, his war plans really wouldn't account for the sort of threat that Iranian drone forces pose. It would have accounted for the fast attack boats, I'm sure, because those existed back then during his time, but they sadly wouldn't have been able to account for the modern form of drone warfare in which we see right now, which is why we really need to see rising tacticians of our age that are able to understand the threat and be able to deal with them accordingly, with a civil administration that also understands the threat and supports those commanders in developing new doctrines and technologies to be able to deal with those threats, which we've talked about a good bit here on the channel on how it could be dealt with, and we would hope that eventually the government will listen, and the military would also listen and evolve as well, because evolution is a necessity within warfare. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Grand Moff Clubby, who said, it feels like our administration is copying the Russians in terms of war conduct, and it's suspicious how they're kind of leaning that way a little bit. LT, LSA.
It is a little odd. I would have to definitely agree with you on that one. I don't really know what to make of it, but as far as their planning goes, it's rather bad. Like, I think we can all agree on that one. But I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Grand Moff Clubby once again, who said, here's a second contribution from the Imperial Remnant tonight. Just for giggles, what do you think about the Star Wars legend, specifically around the Yuzan War, LOTLSA, and the Empire?
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about Star Wars Legends, so sadly I think I'd have to declare ignorance on that. But I do thank you incredibly for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from DWRB who said, "Evening orbs and a happy hump day. It's my Monday since what are weekends on the railroad? Go Flyers, hockey, and LSA."
Hey, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And the railroads be good these days. The railroads be real good. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
Also, a big shout to Chris Feilbach who put into 10. He said, "I had another thought to put into the universe. What would have happened if the Artemis II hit a whale when it landed in the ocean? I mean, it crashes into the ocean, so it'd probably be fine, but..."
If it hit a whale, that whale would probably be pretty messed up. Like, the capsule would be fine, probably, but the whale wouldn't be. Like, probably. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Wantan once again. He said, "What in the Star Wars Death Star was that ship getting boarded with the side hatch? It really is that hard to come up with a better way to fortify it. Rope ladders shouldn't be all you need. Orb."
And I thank you so much for the support, and that's a very interesting input, Wonton Quadruple 8. Sadly, I know like the story of Star Wars and the movies and all, but sadly I don't really know a whole lot about the systems and equipment that they use in Star Wars and that fictional world. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Wentan once again. He said, "Did you guys see the trailer for Pressure finally getting a new interesting World War II movie? It's supposed to be the 72 hours before D-Day, and Eisenhower and James Stagg in deciding day due to weather and LSA."
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard about that. But that actually sounds like one I'd be well and willing of wanting to watch, because that would sound like a really interesting movie that explores the pre-invasion window, which is one that isn't really explored a whole lot in most D-Day movies. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Cerebrus once again. He said, "I might have missed it, but do you think with Viktor Orban losing in Hungary that there's actually a good chance for the EU to come together and things turn around before Russia goes farther?" And it already turned around, by the way, with Orban out of the way, that goofball, with him out of the way. Now the loan to Ukraine's been approved. So that was the main thing that needed to happen. Now Ukraine's pretty much assured for years to come. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yes, and that is actually true. I would agree with that completely. And a big thanks to you for support once again and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 7 from Hormuz Vessel, who said, "For Hormuz, you are framing us backwards. The U.S. is the largest oil producer. Disruption benefits us. Higher oil drives investment, jobs, and tax revenue."
It doesn't. I would talk about that again, but I think we've, over the past month and a half, I've brought that up about 90 times. There's nothing that benefits us about that at all. If it did, it would have benefited us in the 70s when something similar happened in the Middle East, yet it didn't. And that is probably the best example that I can make in a summation of how this will not benefit the United States, because working off of that same logic, Middle Eastern oil being shut off from the outside world, as significantly as it was then, should have been beneficial to us. It was not. We went into an economic recession, there were oil shortages nationwide, and a large amount of companies, especially involved in transportation, started to implode. Railroads like Penn Central collapsed during that time because of the rising prices of fuel, which was the largest bankruptcy in the country at that period of history, in the nation's history. And we also saw that because of that, most civil aviation companies imploded or collapsed during that time or after that time because of the financial strain that they suffered during that period. So generally the answer to that would be that's not correct. But I do thank you for supporting up with this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Trippy. He said, "Well, in Russia, when you're fired, they don't show you the door, they show you the window."
Oh, yeah, that's true, actually. But a big thanks to you for supporting up with this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Miss Paula Thomas. She said, "I'm convinced there's no rationale behind any decision being taken in this war."
I would agree at this point, I think. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Live Animal. He said, "It's time to start decentralizing oil and gas infrastructure away from the Middle East."
Well, that's easier said than done because generally how the global economy works is that they're going to go for the cheapest and most available resources, and the oil fields in the Middle East, at least for now, are some of the cheapest and most easily accessible in the world. That's why there's so many major oil producers there, is because the barrier to entry into the oil industry, because of how easily accessible the fields are, is incredibly low as compared to other places like Venezuela, where it will cost a good bit more to be able to drill effective wellheads and rigs due to the sort of geological limitations that would be posed in that area. So generally, that would be a great idea, but it would not be working off of the capitalist structure of the highest profits off of the cheapest inputs. It would start working against the grain in that regard if we tried to move most everything out of the Middle East and elsewhere. But a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Smarzig, who said, "Where is Tony Stark when you need him? Tony Stank." P.S. By 2026, most people should have bought a hybrid plug-in version, even better.
Maybe so, and Tony Stank, like Tony Stank doing the stanky leg. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that well. And also I saw someone in the chat say you cannot compare the 70s to today though, because back then we imported oil. Now we're a net exporter. Yeah, but we still don't produce all of the oil that we consume. We produce 13.5 million barrels of oil in this country every day. We consume 21 million. So clearly we're still importing oil. We might be exporting more oil than we're importing somehow, some way, but that apparently is from our strategic fuel reserve, because there's no way to account for that through our daily production values in this country. Like if you go and look at the information the Department of Energy puts out on it, which they put out plenty of spreadsheets from 2024 and 2025 on that matter, it is quite clear that the United States does not produce more oil daily than we consume as a nation. That's just an incorrect statement that a lot of people have been making recently. Now, the way they work that, though, here's the little trick that they do, is that they make liquefied natural gas and oil the same statistic. So when you look at it that way, we do produce more liquefied fuel products or fossil fuels or liquid fossil fuels than we consume. But the United States doesn't consume about 8 to 9 million barrels of natural gas or liquefied natural gas a day. That's where all of the exports are coming from. As far as crude oil, we are still relying on imports of crude to be able to keep this country running day to day. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, a 5 from Ripple Effect. You said they are all working together to destroy us for this agenda in this 2030 year.
All of them? Who's all? Like, who is all of them?
That's that they, they're gonna get us, or they're coming for us. I don't really think it's anything like that, because here's the catch: when people say like there's some type of global cabal that's like working to tear everybody down, the problem is this: if the world gets torn down, they get torn down with it. Unless they're planning to go to Mars or something, which is not possible, and also there's nowhere for them to live there, then they're going to come down with us. Everybody's going down. Like, the world's going down at that point. So, I mean, I don't know why they'd be trying to destroy the country that they're living in, because they got to continue to live here. And at that point, everybody's going to hate them at that point. So you probably wouldn't even want to live in the country, even if you were okay at that point. But unfortunately, what say you?
Yeah, and also people are just generally stupid sometimes. Like, not everyone, but some people within the population are fairly stupid. Because, with the government, they do things stupid like right now that's clearly going to screw over the United States. But they didn't do that deliberately, because to put it in another more human perspective, y'all might not have a good relationship with your parents or your friend or a former friend or something like that because they were absolutely rotten people. That doesn't mean that they were a part of a larger cabal to be a rotten person and to ruin your social life. They could have just been a bad person. They could have just been stupid. And that's sometimes what we get in the government, too, is, those stupid people rising to the top, unfortunately. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Putin Dog, who said, I hear EU can't just suck up our supplies, but why complain now, having to share what you have left when it's the U.S. that created the situation?
Well, I complain because I was the one who didn't want to create the situation with the Hormuz. I was for the war, but I wasn't for the idiocy of completely ignoring the Hormuz after we started the war. And so that's why I'm complaining, because the U.S. government has completely fumbled the situation, and just because I'm an American doesn't mean that I have agreed lock and step with every single strategic action or tactical decision that the United States has made in this war that has led us to the absolute disaster that we're in right now. So I thank you for the support, and I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Tabitha Silvers. You said, thanks, enforcers.
And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Brian, and he said that he believes that maybe the Navy Secretary might have been let go because of the inaction against the fast attack boats today.
I don't think so, because that would have been too rapid of a let go. I mean, that whole thing happened, I believe, after he was technically removed from his position or resigned. So I would say that I would generally disagree with that. I think it was for other reasons, reasons that we don't know yet. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Save Not Soft, who said, my idea of a televised Thunderdome is sounding better and better. The leaders are already posting like angry teenagers.
Honestly, I mean, it would probably be one of the most boring pay-per-view fights ever. I mean, a whole bunch of geriatrics in, like, their 80s trying to punch each other. I mean, imagine, Putin is in his 70s. The current president of the United States, what is he, in his 80s, Matthew? Like, I think he is, trying to fight it out.
Maybe.
That would be atrocious. I mean, that would be absolutely horrendous, really. But with that, I hope that does address to the best I can. And big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Cerebus 3, who said, unless I'm mistaken, the fast attack boats are much harder to track than conventional military ships.
Actually, they're pretty easy to track. I mean, we've blown up a lot of comparable boats in the Caribbean that are alleged to carry drugs. So technically, they should be as easy as punch to hit. You could hit one of them with a Hellfire and knock it out for a couple of $100,000 each if you wanted to. So they should be pretty easy to detect and destroy if we wanted to. Once they're out in the open sea, that is. So I hope that is addressed it the best I can. And a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from C. Matt, who said, I've been here a minute, never donated, but can you tell us about the Gucci collection? Please, we have been asking you for months, LMAO, and take one from the chat.
The Gucci collection? What Gucci collection?
Is he getting confused? Like, I say Gucci gun, like, but I'm talking about my Badger, though. I don't know if that's what he's referring to.
So I don't really have a Gucci collection. A long time ago, I built up a pretty decent gun collection because we were planning on basically making like a side channel for guns as a part of the Enforcer brand, but because of a whole bunch of YouTube regulations that changed, that never happened because it basically wouldn't have been viable at that point. But as far as my guns, none of them are Gucci. Like, all of them are basically just like historic, like Cold War era rifles that have been that have been built as semi-autos, like out of like the kit builds and all that stuff. And so I don't really have anything Gucci. I mean, maybe the most Gucci thing I have, trying to think of something, would probably be my FN M4. That's probably the most Gucci thing that I have, but I don't have anything that's like Gucci gun kind of a thing. Matthew has one, and that's his Honey Badger with the suppressor and all that. Really cool looking gun, but I don't have anything like that myself, actually. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the live chat question goes to Richard, who said, would a tactical nuke exploded underwater in the strait explode all the mines?
Probably not, but you could find out, although I don't think that would be a good idea, really. But a big thanks to you for support, and with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Give Up Now, and thank you very much, Give Up Now, for that support. And I'm not sure who this is referring to right here. I'm not sure. Do you know who this is referring to?
I don't think so at the moment.
So Sal, I don't know. I'm not sure who that is, but I'll have to leave that one be. But thank you very much for the support, though. And we also have a 5 from Hoodoo, who said Eponymous was a Greek general and a statesman of the 4th century BC who transformed the ancient Greek city-state of Thebes.
Really? That's actually very interesting. I thank you for sharing that with us. I actually didn't know that. That's news. Thank you so much for the support and sharing a little bit of history with me. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Hoodoo yet again. He said, correction for me, Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt were both Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and the assistant did most of the work.
And that's true. And I thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us, and also correcting me on that as well. And so big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from B. Lamons. He said, avoid KCMO at all costs. I live in Shawnee, Kansas now.
Kansas City, avoid Kansas City. Well, I mean, maybe I just don't know it well enough. Maybe it's a rough place. But a big thanks to you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from JB Najalki, who said, seeing as our prime minister is gaslighting us, any chance you know or could guess how bad Australia's fuel crisis will get? Thanks for the great stream as always, LSA.
Well, I mean, I'm like, I'll have to say, I'll have to run some defense for the Australian Prime Minister. It's not really like he can do anything about it, so he's just trying to, like, tamp down public fears and pandemonium, because it's not like they can actually, intervene and stop what's going on. But it's going to get pretty bad. It's going to get as bad for Australia as it's going to get for us, and if this keeps going for as long as it's going to go on now, guaranteed, basically, it's not gonna turn out well for anyone. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, a big shout out to DWRB for putting in a 5, and thank you very much, good sir, for that support. We also have a 3 from Subcreature and a 2 from Plazoth, and thank you both as well for that support. And we also have a 5 from Game Theory, who said 20 an hour at McDonald's in California, and AI is eliminating jobs left and right in California.
That's unfortunate, but it is like that's a pretty decent wage. But then again, California's so expensive. That's basically still just like hardly above the poverty line relative to California. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 Canadian from a Hormuz vessel who said 70's example is BS. U.S. is a net exporter since 2020.
All right, so all the oil experts that we use for our commentary, they have to be wrong, right? Like all the guys from BlackRock and all the guys from all the oil companies and all that and whatnot, and all of the leaders of foreign nations around the world that listen to their advisors that are experts on these topics that are saying that things are about to get bad. They're all wrong. They're all wrong, right? Like everyone, all of the subject matter experts that we use for our commentary, they're wrong and we're wrong, and because the president says, and he doesn't know shit about the oil industry, that everything's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. I mean...
Also, the whole argument gets blown to shreds with this simple fact right here. If people were relying on getting oil from the Middle East and they're sending all of their oil ships over here to the United States to draw on our oil supplies, it's basic supply and demand. The price of oil is already through the roof because the countries can't get it from the Middle East, and investors are very worried that oil supplies are going downhill. They're going to send all these oil ships to the United States. They're going to drain our oil stocks dry, and basic supply and demand. The demand goes through the roof, and supply becomes low. It's going to drive the oil prices through the roof even further. So I mean, it's basic common sense.
If you produce 100 units of an item per day, and the world consumes about 98 of those, well, actually, let's just say 100. You produce 100 units a day, the world consumes 100 units per day. So then the next day, the world is only producing 70 units per day, but the world still needs 100. So clearly it doesn't matter if the U.S. is a net exporter or anything at that point, because there are 30 units of a disparity of people needing to buy 30 units of items, and there not being 30 more units to buy. So clearly there's going to be a shortage. That is the thing that kind of gets a little bit annoying. I do thank you for the support, but the thing that gets annoying about statements like that is that it's completely like being ignorant of the elementary concept of supply and demand. If the supply is not reaching the demand, there's clearly going to be a shortage. Prices are going to skyrocket, and some people aren't going to be able to get oil because there's just not going to be any oil to buy at that point. So I thank you for the support, but that is a very whitewashed sort of a statement about that that's really forgetting elementary concepts of economics and supply. But with that, we're on to the next one.
Also a 5 from Game Theory, who said, anyone feel like the U.S. is purposely torpedoing the U.S. foreign relations to help the Russians?
I really don't know at this point. I mean, I think that if you make an argument for that or against that, I think that you have pretty decent ground either way. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Hoodoo, who said Teddy Roosevelt was Secretary of the Navy.
And that's true, and he was a very good one at that. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Par Baked Potato, who said, real quick, check out Union Station, Portland, Maine.
Oh, that one's actually a cool one. Yeah, we stopped at that one. Now, downtown Portland isn't really the nicest, but the Portland Union Station is pretty sick. I mean, I like it. I think it was built in the late 1890s, if I'm not mistaken. And I always thought it was pretty neat looking. The Coast Starlight and also the Cascades rail service also passed through here. But a huge thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Cerebrus3, who said, I'm wondering what you both think about the safety being in the trigger. I personally hate it and just feels unsafe to me compared to my Mossberg 591. Now, I think you're referring to Glocks, because Glocks don't have a traditional safety, they have a trigger safety. I think that's what you're referring to. Me personally, I've never had a problem with it. Also, by the way, if people really didn't like that, but they wanted a Glock, they could simply just not rack one in the chamber and just leave the mag in. Now, granted, that's a little bit, iffy for self-defense, because if you need to pull the gun and draw it quick to defend yourself, you're going to have to try to, rack the slide to put a round in the chamber. So that's a little bit sketchy. But me personally, I'm very comfortable with Glocks personally. I have the 19X, I have the 43X, and I've never really had a problem with it. And I'm the most comfortable with those pistols. I know some people hate on them because they're like, oh, it's a plastic Tupperware gun or something, but they're reliable, they work, and that's all I'm looking for out of a gun for the most part. So I like them personally. But Enforcer, what say you?
Me personally, I don't really like trigger safeties all too much. I just feel like it doesn't have enough redundant safeties built into it, and that's also why I'm a really big fan of John Moses Browning's firearms designs, like the 1911, or any other similar design to that, like the Colt 1903s, which were pistols, by the way, not the rifle, and also kind of the SA-35, because the SA-35 got rid of the palm grip. Well, actually, it was the Browning High Power, but I have an SA-35. It got rid of the palm grip safety, but it still has a slide safety on it, which I feel is a fairly effective safety at a minimum. But generally, in my honest opinion, I try and go for as many safeties as possible, because there's nothing wrong with safety, and why not have a passive safety like a palm safety grip, and then also a slide grip as well, a slide safety switch as well. I think that that's a fairly decent sort of a setup, but that's just my personal opinion. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And also, apparently, it's not Portland, Oregon, it's Portland, Maine. And I've never seen the train station in Portland, Maine. So let's see if I can find it here really quickly and show it to everyone here. So where in the world would it be? Let's see. Train station, Portland, Maine. So let's take a look at this. Huh. That's really interesting. It's not like an Amtrak station. It honestly reminds me of like a British railway station. That's actually really unique. That's really cool, actually. Not bad at all for like a railway station. Pretty neat. So a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Wantan Quadruple 8. Excuse me. I saw something in the chat. It was about to make me choke up laughing. I was trying to hold it back. But Wantan said, allegedly, it's estimated that Iran has 2,000 to 6,000 various types of naval mines, including moored, bottom influence, drifting, and contact, rabbit hole mines, and the implication of them having that, LSA.
Unfortunately, I think we're starting to get a little bit pressed for time, and also I'm kind of trying to cover up the fact that I know a little bit about how anti-ship mines work, but I'm not incredibly in-depth on it to be able to explain it succinctly. So unfortunately, I think we'd have to leave that up to a more maritime focused channel that would know a lot more about that, because sadly, naval warfare is something that I've been interested in a little bit, but I don't know the intimate details of like I would land warfare or air-based warfare. So a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Game Theory, who said, does Utah allow hunting in the mountain?
I don't think so. I don't think hunting's generally allowed in most national forests. But I might be incorrect on that, because I don't know what the rules are on that. But I think that most national forests generally have some sort of protection for wildlife laws or policies on the book. So thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that, folks, it's now time to move on to our live chat questions and Morse code cutters of the night. And we had the entire roster. We had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroic Fluffiness, Kush, Koberteric, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse code says, I feel like we're going to be toiling for an oiling soon. LLT, LSA. Ayo?
And that's the sound of baby oil. Ain't nothing like it did the party. I'm just kidding. That's the sound of money. You'll get the dental nail. That was the jackpot. I just tried to come up with something that rhymed, by the way, Matthew. It has no meaning to it. It just was something that rhymed, so I was like, I'm going to do it. But y'all did get that correct, and I got to congratulate y'all greatly for that, and getting that correct time and time again. Really impressive stuff. And so with that, it is time for us to get on to one last super chat here, and then, unfortunately, folks, due to time constraints, we're only going to be able to get 3 live chat questions, and then we're going to round out the stream for the night. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And this one goes to Kyle Padell, who said, I just got done watching Godzilla vs. Mothra. Best news, LSA.
Hey, and I've heard good things about Mothra. I like Mothra. Cool moth. But a big thanks to you for support, and thank you for the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it's time for us to get on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Jacob, who said, how much longer can the Russians just throw 30,000 troops a month at the situation?
And generally until their money runs out. They're actually going to run out of money before they run out of bodies, I think. So, really, that's more so the determining factor is how fast they're going to run out of money. And I think at this point, definitely has to be within the next year. Like, it has to be, because they are hardly hanging on by a thread even right now. So, a big thanks to you for the great question there. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to John Ferrario, who said, should the U.S. just cut and run in Iran?
Well, generally, I'm not really a big fan of cutting. I'm more of a slicing fan. But outside of that, all jokes aside, you can't really cut and run from this sort of a situation. Rather unfortunately, really. You kind of have to just stick in and really try and pull out the best situation that you possibly could. So I hope that is addressed to the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. So who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to AF Kaplan. He said, were there any survivors from the ships that were attacked by Iran? And if yes, are they now being held hostage?
Yes, there was no one that was injured or killed from what we know from the one attack they conducted on that one container ship, which is believed to be the MSC Francesca. And apparently all crew members have now been detained and are largely being held hostage at this point by the IRGC, most likely for some form of ransom at some point here in the future. So I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this news for all of y'all once again today. We have been covering news for 1,519 days, basically nonstop, and we are massively appreciative to know that some of y'all have been with us on this journey of world of history that we've been watching unfold before our very eyes, and I hope that once again we were able to portray the story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything else in between tonight as best we could with some decent analysis added in as well. If y'all have enjoyed and you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We run live streams like these every day at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. And we also make short war videos every day of the week whenever we have enough news to make a short war video. So humongous thanks to you all once again for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is enough news for a short war video, Enforcer Matt will be the one making it. And with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukrainian, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, a huge shout out to the 135,000 people that were here by the very end of the stream. And we will see all of you tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next Nightly War News stream. And most likely for a short war video tomorrow if there is enough news to cover, as always. And maybe there will be something happening. It's hard to tell, but we're sort of getting toward the end of the rope when it comes to the whole situation with Iran. So something's bound to happen here shortly. So we're watching very closely for that. And I think most people can feel it in their bones. They can just feel that their bones are kind of like aching a little bit. They know something's coming around the corner, but they're not quite sure. So we'll have to see. But anyway, so thank you all once again for joining us. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Hero Slava, get some rest, and good night.